Hello? You've got me. Oh, for God's sake. Hello? No? All right. Check, check. Okay, that looks better on. That looks better too. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, and yeah, we got. I know we're like we're crazy. I have to get James Kirk in here. Okay. Sorry about that. I was working right up till the very last second, wrangling pogaroos, and and boy, do we have a cavalcade of pogaroos for you guys today. Um, been real busy working on a lot of fun stuff, and going at it hammer and tongs now. So make sure I got everything rolling here. Yes, appears to be. I do need to turn off the monetization on YouTube. 1 second. Uh, so I hope everybody's been doing well. Sorry I had to. Still can't hear me? When it works says he can't hear me. I think we're good on both, right? Um, yeah, it looks like we're getting audio levels on both. So hopefully we're okay. Um, all right, let me just turn off the. Oh, it's a little low. Okay, hang on. Um, yes, that should be better. That should be a lot better. Sorry about that. Okay, so here we go. Let me just turn off the monetization. Yeah, obviously it's been pretty frantic here, but like I said, we've been working like fiends. By we, I mean me, pretty much. Monetization off, done, save. We'll go back. Okay, I think we're in business. Um, yeah. So as I said, lots and lots of pogaroo wrangling here last weekend or so. As you know, I need to hire a sound tech, need to hire producers. Yes, a leap. We got to think of what that appropriate noun would be for pogaroos. A a massacre of pogaroos or a catastrophe of pogaroos. It is. It has been a lot of work for these guys. I'm not sure they're finalized. I I like them a lot. I'm not 100% positive, but I think they're good enough. I think they're good enough for us to do the shots because you only see them on the horizon. A manslaughter of pogaroos. That's really great. That's a great one, Marisha. No, I don't want to go that way. I want to go the other way. I want to go that way. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the development of these creatures here. I spent a lot of time getting the design finished, and let's see if this will fit without blowing everything. This was a generation that I liked a lot from Mid Journey, and I used this as the the basis for where I was going. I liked it because I really thought the head was really alien. A Spring of Pogaroo, it's a good name, and and it had the correct general proportions. So yes, I did Quibo, and I meant to respond to that, but I need Shelly to forward me that email, so I'll have it tomorrow. Yeah, they look a lot like raptors. So here's the problem. I, as you know, the AI image generations and video generations especially, but all of this stuff works on training. So unlike CGI, um, the the AI, and in this case specifically the animation AI, needs to know what to do. I have reference images from the stills of these creatures from 8 different angles, and in all of them, I was able to fuse the legs into one foot. And I thought, okay, once I've got the reference from all 8 angles, that'll lock it in. But the problem is that the animation engines have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of references of quadrupeds walking. They've got millions and millions of videos of them walking. They also know how bipeds walk. They have a fair amount of training in dinosaurs. And so since that's all the animation engines know, that's all they can really reproduce. So even though in the still images, in the still reference images, all of the reference images show what I wanted, which is the legs merging into a single foot. And I've rendered hundreds of videos of this last time, hundreds. And not one of them has been able to manage that one-footed hopping. It just doesn't have it doesn't know what to do with them. It honestly cannot do it. Now there's two potentials. One potential is that the software will get better, and that's undoubtedly true. The other potential is, instead of the 4 still reference pictures, I might need to do, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, mind you, but if I had a sequence of the legs flexing and extending and pushing with those things fused together, then that might do it. But as of now, it's impossible. It's hard enough to lock them into kangaroo hops. They really want to run. The animation engine wants these things to be raptors, and they look quite a bit like raptors. And that is not what I want. So in Cast 27, which is what I started doing it, I I just saw Quibo's note about that organic pogo stick's not a bad idea, actually. Although I've tried everything else. Hang on, let me just get this down. So I had to bump these things up ahead. I normally wouldn't have spent any time on them yet, but I need them for Cast 27, and I got to get that thing out the door. So I had to get them. I had to get some version of them done. So what I do have on this demo is enough shots of them hopping in unison, and if they're far enough away, then they'll read as I can make them monopeds later when we find out more about them, because they only get seen from a distance. And this is part of how the I don't know if the creative process works, but the sort of accidental creative process works. I took the image that you saw earlier. I got a sharp pain behind my left eye, which I don't like. Took those reference images and started adding fur and coloration, and I was pretty happy with that. I got the foot to fuse and so on, and then I started playing with a membrane on the back, of these animals' tail. I like that because I wanted this spine to kind of come up when they hit a certain speed, and and that would serve as like an aerodynamic stabilizer. And if they really had to make a sharp turn, they could flip their tail like a rudder. And I was more or less happy with that. So I think at this point we're just going to say these are Pogaroos V1. But in any event, that head and membrane serve a function that was described in I'll come out his name. Wayne Barlow's expedition. He's got a kind of a creature there, bipedal creature called a cement, I think it is, where their tail and their heads look very similar, so that from the air, from predators, couldn't tell which way they were going. So there's a bit of that because they're both dark colored. Everything else on the Pogaroo is white and very light blue. And so that dark head and dark tail could be kind of used behind. I think I'm all right, Tom. It kind of comes and goes and doesn't. It hasn't been here long. It's probably just a stress headache. So that that worked for a bit. Then, as I started doing test animations on them, they were doing too many hoppies, and so I had to constantly refine the animation prompt to make it like head down, forward, so that they were really moving. Now, I think this animation you're about to see consists of something like, I think probably 40, maybe 40 or 50. 40 short little, 5-second animations, and they are more or less in the order that I generated them, so they get better. But I cannot stress this enough. This whole thing is very quirky, and I'd like you to go a little easy on the criticism because this is not the final version. I put a lot of it together, and I had to see how it works. For example, I did 2-3 days of animation on the Pogaroos where they just kept falling over forward and putting their nose in the snow, and it's because I didn't have their hips and legs at the right position. So the physics of the animation engine kept saying that these things were nose heavy, and so it kept pushing them into the ground. So I extended the tail and I gave it a little more backwards weight, and that helped a lot. And I really think that I still have to refine the head and tail weights and positions so that the thing balances normally. A lot of this problem may be due to that. So one more thing before I show you the animation. As you saw from that image I just put up, which I'll put up again here, it's got 4 legs in there, and they're pretty small, and I certainly wanted them to be not quite vestigial, but certainly not their primary means of locomotion. So a number of animations, I've shown, what I'm about to show you is probably 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6. So I've done a lot of these. But a lot of times what the animation engine will do is if it thinks the thing's leaning forward too much, it'll extend those legs, and in several of the animations, it was actually a quadruped. It was walking on 4 legs, didn't like that. So I actually tried a couple of renditions where I took the reference photos and I removed them completely, and I kind of like them without any 4 legs because it make them look more alien. So what you're going to see is most of them will have short 4 legs. Some of them will be doing too much on the 4 legs. A couple of the renders don't have any 4 legs. And one more thing before we start, because again, I'm happy to show this to you guys, but it is really frustrating to hear comments about things that I'm like already mentioned as like known issues. One of the things is that it will a lot of these test images that I'm showing you'll see things where later on, especially when I'm doing herds of them, they're they'll run and sometimes they'll morph together, or some will appear out of somewhere else. I would never let that get out of the shop for finished stuff, but I didn't have time to edit it all down. I just grabbed them and stuck them there. And so once again, I'm going to try and do this so that I can keep them in sync. So the best way for me to do that, since I haven't preloaded them, I was just assembling them just now, is I'm going to drop them into each one of the two. If I didn't have these two streams going at the same time, my life would be just so much easier. I'm going to drop the animations into both of these things, and then I'm going to turn them off. And then I should be able to turn them both on very nearly at the same time. So there we go. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka says, are these things herbivores? If so, that's a heck of a jaw. I imagine something more rodentia. Yeah, it is it's a long jaw. They are herbivores. I didn't include it. In fact, I didn't include it because I don't remember where I put it. But I did a number of animations, which you're not going to see, where these things are rooting through the snow. So they've got that kind of hard, long, bony kind of beak for, basically just either rooting through or just punching through some ice. So then, and then the final thing, I'll just set it up, is that just as a test, I rendered them against different backgrounds, and one of the backgrounds that I rendered them against, one of my favorite landscapes from Midjourney, and it's on the shores of an almost frozen sea. It's when Niflheim is either heading out into cold or coming back to the cold. And no, it's not a pterodactyl beak. It's bony and hard on the outside, and so the landscape is frozen. The water, it's like slush on the beach, but the water is still liquid in some places. And so I had him running down the beach, right? And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then the animation engine took a few of them into the water, and the interaction with the water was so good. This is some things that these are the things that the animation engine does amazingly well. So when I saw a couple of them walking in the water, or just setting up splashes and stuff, I thought, all right, well, let's send them in the water. Let's see how they go. And I was so impressed with it. It was just so realistic. The water physics were so realistic. I started expounding on this, and I thought, okay, well, maybe they go in and eat like this, because I think they're primarily like algae eaters or moss, or very simple kind of, almost like a soup of this. I think this algae is kind of the primary life form on this, and that it's got a lot of calorie density. So then I thought, well, they look so cool in the water. And here's the thing, that tail I set up with that membrane is kind of an aerodynamic stabilizer, works great in the water. And the idea that their toes would spread and be webbed, we can work on all this stuff later, but they would be very efficient swimmers. So once I got them in the water, I thought, well, damn, man, I might just have to make them really truly omnivorous. They maybe the time that they spend hopping, they've still got some soup there, or it gets later in the year or something. They're looking for these not so much oceans or anything, but just sort of lakes or areas that haven't completely frozen through yet. So look, almost all of this is going to be resolved when the software gets better. Right now, I've got a couple of shots in here that I've already got that I could go to the bank on a couple of shots that I've already got, a couple. But we'll get them there. So I'm going to stop developing these guys and get on with getting the shots, because I think these will do for the far distance. All right, so as I said, in order for me to start these things together, I got to drag them into the frame first. So I'll drag them in, and then I'll turn them off, and then to get them to run more or less in sync with what I'm doing, I should be able to turn them on pretty quickly here. Let me just see if I God, I've got honestly maybe thousands of images of these things. What did I call it? Cavalcade of Pogaroos, I think I called it. Where is it? Hang on. It should be on the desktop. Hang on a second. It's very strange. Oh, hang on. Here we go. I don't know how to explain that. I know I've got it output, and if I don't, it only takes a second. It went to the desktop, should be here. All right, let's output it again. Premiere. Boom, there they are. Output, desktop, Cavalcade of Pogaroos, MP4, yes. Export. Here they come. Okay, so about 30, 40 seconds for that to be ready. So, let's see what we got here. March of the Pogaroos, yeah. Yeah, so I think there are some things that I like a lot about them, other things I don't like. When they look like dinosaurs walking, well, I cut all the walking animations, I just didn't include them. But as a general rule, for a guy who's not really a design artist, I think they hold up pretty well, and they'll certainly, for a group that's seen on the horizon, they'll certainly do for the time being. One or two of these shots, that's why I wanted to get them synced so that I could narrate over them. There's one or two of these shots where they're exactly what I want, where they're really hauling ass. In most of them, they're hopping slower than I would like, but they're not running full tilt boogie the whole time either. So there you go. But speed is their main defense. All right, now I think we're ready to rumble. So let's see here. I'm gonna drag them in one by one, turn them off, and then I'll turn them on again, and I'll do the narration over them. So let's see. Cavalcade of Pogaroos. Okay, hang on, guys. That's that. Hang on. And that's that. Okay, ready? Here we go. Again, be kind of gentle on me here, okay? This is like a first pass, so oh, and one more last thing. It's the nature of these animation engines, especially in this case where I'm using like a prompt. So the prompt will be, I've got one reference image of the Pogaroos from 8 different angles, and the prompt will be, a herd of Pogaroos are sitting on the edge of the frozen ocean. They look up one by one, and then they jump into the water. And so many of these animations start with, they have like a false start where the thing starts generating frames, and it doesn't know what to do at first, and then all of a sudden it picks it up and so on. You're going to see sometimes like 2 animals will collapse into one, or one will split into 2, but that's usually early on. So yes, thank you very much, Roger Ramjip. This is Alpha Test 01, so here we go. And then, let me turn down the volume on those guys a little bit, because they do come with their own soundtrack. I turn that down a little bit. So some of them come with some music, and I'll just... all right. Okay, I guess we're ready. We ready? All right, here we go. start the YouTube one first, I guess. And they should go together. All right, here we go. Ready, and go. Okay, so this is the very first test of the Pogaroos I did, and they're jumping too high. Their feet are not merged together yet. We'll worry about that later. But again, that's kind of this is more like their leisurely pace. You can see their feet on this one actually join together when they're on the ground, but the animation engine doesn't know what to do with them. But overall, pretty happy with this at a kind of a leisurely pace. This is them out on the open ice. Now, we'll never get this close to these things, or at least certainly not in the first season. Gravity is lower on this planet. Keep that into account. It's probably about 85% of Earth, so they can jump higher and further. This next shot coming up horizontally, this shot here is pretty good look at their tails. I kind of like that. It's all right. They're still doing a little bit of a lope instead of a hop. This one starts out as a rear view, but then it starts coming at you, and I don't know, it's kind of intimidating. Give you a little better look at their face with their mouth open, and this one is hauling ass. He's moving. That's kind of the motion I'm really looking for there. So, and this guy is kind of moving about the way I want to. Mostly forward, not up and down. This guy's really, really clocking. So some of that is actually pretty good. This one's not getting enough vertical motion. There's something about that hop's not quite right. A little close-up action here, a little slow motion, National Geographic action. But that's not too bad at all, actually, not too shabby. And here's another one. I love that golden eye, by the way. All right, so here comes Buster coming right at the camera here. And he put a spine on his back. I didn't put that there. I don't know why I included that. I like the fact that it turns away from you. These two guys on the trail here are looking pretty good. Notice how they're using their forelegs though to touch the ground. I don't want that. Again, the forelegs are extending longer than the reference photo, and they're touching the ground. Not crazy about that. These guys are going a little bit high, but they're kind of cool. Yeah, that's not bad. I can live with that. Here's a first attempt at a herd, and you can see that they're galloping with their front legs like deer. So that's just out. But it was the first herd one I did. Again, these guys, their front legs are longer than the reference photo. It's the animation engine cheating because it doesn't know what to do. As another example of those forelegs, those skinny little spaghetti strings that the animation engine puts out there. They put spines on this one, but this one I like because they're really moving. That is a very, very close to what I'm looking for. And again, their forelegs are a little long, but you know, their little hippity hop as they go past the camera's not bad. Again, the forelegs are doing a little bit too much work here, but it's giving you the sort of sense of speed. That one's actually pretty close. I like the colorations on this one a lot. And again, the forelegs are too long there, so you know we'll credit it. This one is one I tried without any forelegs, and to be honest with you, I really kind of like it. It looks a little more alien, although they do look more like birds that way. I'll probably stick with the four short legs. That one's very good. That's real close. That's real close. And this one too, the forelegs are not touching the ground, so that's kind of what we're looking for here. So I can live with that one. I love the way the animation engine brought that second one in from close. I think if their forelegs touch the ground, it's a lost shot. But there's one without the forelegs again, just to see. Now those look like they're hauling booty. There's a jump step there or something, but they're moving. There's a front legless version. They're a little too synchronized. Another hiccup. And again, another version with no front legs. I'm curious to get you guys' take on that when I get a chance to slow down. I've said don't move them in sync, and sometimes it does that, and sometimes it doesn't. Here's a herd of them from behind. It's more or less correct, I guess. All right, here's the ocean. Now this is where it gets kind of cool. The lighting is great for one thing, and this is I think the first frame I did where they just kind of walked along the beach, and the guy just this is one without the forelegs. And they kind of slid into the water a little bit, so I thought, okay, we'll get a little closer to the water. Now watch the interaction of these things in the water. It's phenomenal. Here's another one. I just kept driving them closer and closer to the water. And I like that dive. And this is where the tail looks like shark fins, which is kind of cool. So maybe making them marine hunters as well, you know, could be kind of cool. Not even hunters, or just grass eaters or moss eaters or something. And poosh into that wave, man. It's just perfect. It's perfect. And there's some without the front legs, just for tests. And the way the water interacts with them, here's a little closer. No forelegs on these guys. Splash, splash. That's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It has a little morphing problem there where it can't determine what the hell's going on, but the water and the way the wave washes over those guys. Here they go again. Get off your forelegs, dudes. There's that little stutter at the top of the animation when it's trying to figure out what to do. And that is awfully impressive. Wink, wink. Yeah, again, they're kind of morphing in and out, but that, God, I cannot get over how good that water looks. And here we go again. And kind of a rear view. And that big jump at the end. This one's kind of cool. I like the way this herd thing starts off. And then they look like, well, obviously some came out of nowhere, but there's a while where they look really pretty intimidating. They definitely got that, but you just see that shark tail. That swimming's pretty good because they've got kind of webbed feet, so they push back. And this one's awfully good, awfully good. For splash. That's pretty impressive too, I think. Huh? What? Wait. Okay. That was almost like anti-gravity. But the way this engine handles that's it. The way that engine handles the interaction with the water, it just absolutely blew my mind. So yeah, that's it. You might have to give it something like wings to get it off its forelegs, Bill. You'd be surprised how many generations of this gave it bat wings. But then it just looks like dragons. So that question is, do they need the forelegs? I kind of think they do. In fact, I know they do. They just need to. They just need to keep them in close. They cannot, when they're hopping, they cannot touch the ground with those forelegs. Yeah, I was saying he was going 100 miles an hour or something. Yeah, the two legs work pretty well. I'm not married to the fact that they have one. I just think that I think that I've been working on them for pretty much 4 or 5 days straight. And what I might need to do is shorten some of the maybe shorten the limbs, the reference limbs a little bit so that they don't extend. And you know, it's funny. I really do think that that moving the tail a little, making the tail just a little bit longer. Hey, thank you, Aussie Drone Guy. It's nice. Moving the tail a little bit longer so they're not so forward leaning. Let's move the center of gravity a little bit aft. That'll work. Rich says you could have variants, some with T-Rex arms, some with no arms, some with tiny wings. Well, I can't really do that. They're a species. There might be like minor variations. I don't think what I actually originally had was that tail had a lot more verticality to it. That there was a lot more verticality on it. Dogs are a species, but look how many different breeds there are. Well, there's nobody breeding Pogaroos, Marusha, so we're not going to have some with wings and some not. Um, uh, so anyway, I think they're at the point where I can pretty much let them go, and we don't see them again until the beginning of the second season. And so for the time being, I think they'll work well, and we'll give them a chance to give the technology a chance to catch up. The key right now will be lighting them correctly. And as I said, of all of the thank you, Ryder. Of all of the animations, and like I said, there's probably 40 of them. I think probably 3 or 4 of them are are pretty much exactly what I was looking for, where they're just going forward and they're hauling butt. They may not be doing 100 miles an hour, but they're fast. And one of the things that really sell the speed, and you didn't see yet, but one of the things that'll really sell the speed, because this is definitely one of the shots in Cast 27, is a shot of the rover in the foreground and the pogaroos in the background. And when you can see how fast the rover is going over the ground, and these things are either keeping up or accelerating away, that should do it. So they're coming out with some of the best movement constructs were when they were in a stupid hurry. I haven't had a chance really to play with them, with the exception of the 1 or 2 I did of them rooting around. Let me just see something here. Let me just see if I can find that, because if I can, just download that one file and. Here's a couple of iterations I didn't even see that I should have included. Yeah, I missed some. Let me see if any of these are must-haves. Yeah, he's still doing too much running. Hang on. I definitely have one of them. And somebody mentioned tracks. I got tracks for you. All right, I'm going to download just a couple more, just drop them in, let them run. I just missed them. So that one. If you ever wanted to see the butt end of a Pogaroo, I got animations for you. But on both of these that I'm about to show you, the texture on the tail membrane is really good. Let me find the rooting ones. I can't believe I missed these. Yeah, I'll take that one too. Hang on. I know for a fact I did them, and they've got to be in here. Hang on. So many reference images. I spent so much time on these guys. Hang on. Okay, yeah. So these would be earlier versions. Sorry, I gotta. Any of them hopping? All right, this one I'm going to show too, because this one, you know what? I like this one so much, I actually should go back to this design. Seriously. I can't believe I didn't show this. I think this is as good as they look, to be honest with you, this one I'm about to download. So that'll be download number 4. Sorry about this, but you know what? Hey, here we are. Hang on. I didn't go far back enough when I was downloading these things just a few minutes ago. Give me a second. It'll be worth it. Okay, so, got some flappy wingy ones. Yeah, that's really good. All right, hang on one sec. I'm almost there. So many renders, so little time. And this is awful good too. Oh, and I have to show you this. How did I not show this? Hang on, I'm going to have to put these together into a small little movie. It won't take me very long at all. I missed these earlier iterations, and they're actually pretty cool. So I've got some that have a real different tail, and I've got some that have a much longer fur. How did I miss this? So you can tell me what you think. Yeah, you know what? I'm an idiot. This is some of the best. All right, stay tuned. Okay, just give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, that's it. Give me 1 second. It's worth it. Sorry about the delay. I can't believe I missed him. So I'm going to do a new sequence of just these latest movies that I just found. And we download. Hang in there. Everybody talk amongst yourselves here. Today at 7:30, but it's 7:15 now, so it'll be these guys from here to here. Right. Okay, 1 second. Honestly, we're almost there. It makes me a little nutty, to be honest with you, because what I realize is, I think having seen so many of the animations of the model that I went with, once I locked it, and I went back and looked at earlier versions of it just now, because I was looking for this business of them rooting around through the ice, and I realized, having just done, 200 renders of them in motion, I went back and looked at some of the earlier stuff, and I just said, yeah, I kind of like this earlier stuff better. So, all right, so same procedure as last time. I'm gonna, yeah, definitely like some of this stuff better. I'm gonna drop it in, and then I'm gonna stop it, and then I'm gonna go again. So, desktop, Cavalcade 2, where are you? There it is. Okay, so give me 1 second here, crew. Stop it. We're going to start it and then stop it and start it again. And you go off. Okay. And then you come over here. And then, whoops. That's what I hate about this bloody version. This YouTube version is just terrible. There's a beautiful butt scene. How do I turn you off? Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Ready? So, So here are some earlier versions which I actually like better. So I'll just narrate these as we go. Move all my winders all over the place here, and set this thing up, and do this. Last one, where did you go? Okay. All right, we're in business. Yes. So I'll tell you what. This is a little disappointing, but also encouraging, because I wasn't completely in love with the finalized version that I showed you. And then I went, like I said, I just went back looking for them rooting around, and I realized I kind of think I like a lot of this better. All right, so here we go. So this is actually earlier versions of the Pogaroos, and what you're going to primarily see is the tail is longer, and it's more elaborate, and it runs better. So I got to redo my reference images. One or two of these that you're going to see have the tail. The tail actually becomes three-dimensional, like almost like a triangle. And then I did at least one of these where, at least one, and probably two, where I showed them in their long fur just before they go into hibernation, which I have mixed feelings about, but I'd like to get your take on it too. All right, so ready? Here we go. So this will be Pogaroos V2, and we'll start them right now. Okay, so here's a rear view, and you can see plenty of tracks there, so that's good. I like the look of the membrane when it hits the sun there. That's pretty cool. Same view again. Start off as the monopod. I don't need the monopod. I do like the way this tail flexes a little more from behind, and then when it gets in the snow, it looks groovy. This, I think, is not this one, but it's one of the best shots of them ever, and I like that tail a lot better. I like the tail a lot better. Now this guy's moving. Now this one's tail is flapping a little too much. It needs to be more rigid than that, but it's just a really good shot. Here's the furry one. And you can see that tail actually kind of becomes like 3D there. Pretty well. And this one I think might be my favorite. I love the way that guy just clears those obstacles like that. Hey, hooray, we're gonna have a big happy leap at the end. Here they are foraging through the ice. What? Huh? Well, let's keep going. Now they're running instead of hopping, but you know, you get the idea. Wink, wink, here comes the next guy. He's got that kind of more elaborate tail. He's got all his fur on, and you know, he's just kind of grooving. Whee! Hooray! Right into the snow like a dweeb. This is the best animation of the bunch, I think. The leap is a little much, but I love the way the tail went up during the leap. And yeah, forget about the fact that their tails all go up in unison. I just wanted them to... I like those tails much better. I like them much better. And this guy's having a happy day. He's jumping up and down a little more than he should, but the way the tail's moving, it's just better. All right, that's it. So I got some more repair work to do. But Rough Ryan says the furry one with the elaborate tail's by far the best. I don't want them to be fantasy creatures, but a lot of people are saying they like the hairy ones. Well, the nice thing is, of course, yeah, I'm giving up on the monopods. Thank you very much, Airtechie and Roadrunner and everybody else. So they're going to go into their... They don't even hibernate, they die, basically. That's a great, interesting point, Tom. Not to go full geek on you, Bill, but have you considered how it might be if they only have one of everything, not just leg, but eye, nostril, etc.? I'm not going to do it on this planet, but I've got the biology of a lot of worlds. I don't know how many of them are going to have their own ecospheres in the total colonies, but I'd be willing to bet you there's probably 8 or 10 planets maybe that have some kind of a life on it. So I'm not gonna do that here. Sea Dance 2 is coming out, and I don't have access to it yet, but it's really good with motion, so this whole thing may be solved very quickly. People in both chats want to know if you can ride them. I don't think you're going to even see them or get close to it. So let me work through some of these notes that you guys have here. When they go into these algae pools to dive for the winter, because that's what they do, they dive for the winter, they're going to have all of their fur. Too much audio? Too loud now? It's too quiet before. Too much audio? Alright. Yeah, there's nothing to show skill. And that's something else. And by the way, sound is thank you. Got it. Let's see. That should do it. Right? Yep, that should do it. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's go through these notes one at a time here. But Tom's note about like a monolateral symmetry. This is one thing about the fact that that we've got so many different planets. Whatever happens on this planet, as on Earth, has to look like it came from a common ancestor. So a lot of us have 5 fingers, and so do monkeys. And if you look at the bones of whales, the vestigial bones of whales have 5 fingers. So somewhere way back in evolutionary history, something happened that said 5 fingers on Earth, and so on. One thought I had that I liked a lot, and it's not going to be on Niflheim, but you were talking about having one of something. I definitely want to have a creature that's basically got one eye that's just constantly doing this. It's just got one eye and it's just doing this, and it's using that kind of false stereo, and and the predators could be like they move slowly, and then as they get closer, they just do that so that they're able to get a better picture on it. I definitely want to do a planet where the air is very thick, and it's not going to be the one with the Medusas, but a real dense atmosphere, and they are eyeless and they're sonar based. They just do that. They did that on what was that movie with Vin Diesel? Was it Total Eclipse or After Dark or something? I don't remember. But you may have seen they've got them online. Where it's like a GIF sequence where they go pitch black, GIF sequence where they show things moving back and forth, and even though it's not real stereo, if they move that image fast enough, you definitely get a sense of 3D. So Pitch Black was a great movie, man. I really liked it. I thought it was great. So they go into the water to die with their full winter coats on because it's cold. When they come out, it's cold. They resuscitate themselves, again, kind of on the fly here, but that poisonous stuff that they eat and that they vomit as soon as they wake up could cause them to shed their fur. So since it's getting warmer, and so when we see them, at some point we'll see them essentially nearly naked. They'll be doing a lot of swimming in the summertime, these guys. No, they die. Roadrunner. It's not like they have. It's not like they have like a really slow heartbeat. They freeze, and enzymes activate when they melt and the sun comes up and it kind of kicks them back into shape. Yes, they definitely shed their coat for summer, and that makes them faster because the predators are more of a threat. And then as it starts to head out colder again, the fur starts to grow, and then by the time they're ready for full-on winter, they're in full fur. So when I do show the Pogaroos on the Cast 27 thing, this is like they're like very, very late, and so they need to be fully furry. In fact, Will has some dialogue about that, how they're when he's talking to Claire, who really, really, really wanted to see them, and he says that there was a moment when they all turned and the sun hit up a certain way, and it's like a real shimmery kind of a fur at a certain angle, almost enough to like kick off like spectrums and stuff. It was pretty cool. So they swim better without the fur. So when things are hot, they're streamlined, and then they grow their fur really fast as it starts to get colder. And so we'll time it. We'll figure it out. But yes, Marusha wants to know what their lifespan is in Earth years and Nephil years. I don't know. I don't have video of their predators yet, but I know exactly what I want them to be. And somebody mentioned the scale. The scale is, I think, much bigger than people want. I certainly don't want people to think that they're small. I was saying the size of a camel. So, and as far as their age, I would say probably, I don't know, generally 20 years, maybe 15, 20, 30 years for Niflheim years for them. So it seems about right. And yeah, but they're very, very skittish. I don't want any tamed pogaroos. I'm still thinking about the entire idea of domesticated pogaroos. I did, Airteki asks, is the fur valuable? I think the fur is exceedingly valuable. In fact, I think once Claire cracks the case on the biology, they can be not exactly breeding them, but definitely corralling them for their fur. And then the thing of it is, if they keep them warm, they're just going to die anyway. Their life cycle is so locked in, millions and millions of years by this point, that after it gets cold outside, even if they keep them warm inside, hoping to keep them alive all year long, they're just not husbandry. Thank you, dude. They're not going to be domesticatable. And would humans sell pogaroos off-world? I don't think they'd survive the transport, let alone another thing. Trinity says, is poaching an issue? I don't think so. I think these people are pretty much trying to, these colonists are trying to develop this planet. They're not real. They're certainly not a resource. I think, yeah, obviously, we've had 70, 80 years of colonization. Then there be people that had a certain interest in them. I think they certainly did do the initial survey where they went into some detail, but they couldn't explain their life cycle because they just disappeared. So I don't really see that. Eric says, are pogaroos edible? Edible, rather. I'm going to say that they've got right-handed amino acids, and you can eat them and not get any nutrition out of them. And likewise, they can't eat our stuff. In fact, that is the best possible answer. In fact, that's really the only possible answer for why they haven't tried herding them or breeding them or husbanding them. You can't just give them earth food. You've got to harvest and preserve the moss and the algae that they eat, and that stuff falls apart really fast because of the biology. We'll back everything up so we don't have any holes. I'm not going to have any plot holes in this thing. I don't want anybody going, oh, come on. And it'd be really nice if we could set it up so that it's not like we didn't think of this stuff. Quibo says zoologists will show up later. The backstory I'm writing for Claire is that zoologists came early, as they would in any initial expedition, and they tried to find them, for certainly for the first year, and a few researchers stuck around for the second year trying to find out where they go for the winter. They kept assuming, maybe geothermal caves or geothermal springs or whatever, and they checked all these crevasses and these deep underground caves and tunnels, and no sign of them. So Claire, and they have occasionally, again over 80 years, found in maybe part of a pogaroo carcass frozen in the ice, and they just assumed that it fell into the ice. But it's Claire who is the one that actually cracks the biology, and she is the one that is the first to document the fact that they intentionally freeze themselves for the winter, because, as I said before, water only goes down to 32 degrees, but the temperature might go to 150 or 200 below in the absolute depth of winter at nighttime. So we'll get the details worked out. We got some smart people here, and we'll just play around with it. But as a start, it's not bad. Tom says, did I miss the food source question? So in this planet has evolved to have a 2-year winter followed by a 4 or 5 months summer. And so all of the growing has to happen in those 4 or 5 months. As I said before, the fastest growing plant on Earth is bamboo. And you can certainly tell that a bamboo is grown from evening to morning. But I think with these things, if you look carefully, like really look carefully with a magnifying glass, I think that you could actually see the plants growing on on this planet. So it has to happen fast. We get something like that here in Los Angeles. There's no, it doesn't rain between February and November, December at all. Not at all. Not a day. And so during the rainy season, which we're in now, all of these weeds, well, they're weeds. They grow like weeds. They just have to get it done quick. Don Vickery says mushrooms grow fast and algae grows fast. I kind of think that this is going to be largely algae based because algae has a lot of surface area and you can pack a lot of calories into algae. And I think also the oceans. Somebody asked, are there fish? I'm kind of thinking that there's probably not going to be really time for fish, but that a kind of a krill will mean that for 4 or 5 months the oceans are just going to be soup. It's just going to be soup, and something has to be producing the oxygen. So we can work it all out together, man. We'll just get the details right now for Cast 27 and for season 1. All I need is a shot of them on the horizon, and then some out of focus, photographs from the history of the colony, and maybe some distant, video. But we certainly don't have to do that right away. Something has to eat the algae. The pogaroos eat the algae. I'm actually thinking of something that's really primitive, like the one thing I seem sure of is that this is a very, very sparse ecosystem. There's not a lot of diversity here. They just can't afford it. So when you go to like polar regions, you go to the South Pole, you have penguins and seals and orcas. That's about it. You go to the North Pole, you get seals and polar bears, and that's about it. Meanwhile, in any, I bet you anything, well, I know for a certain fact, that in a square foot of the Amazon, there's more species than there are at the poles. In fact, there's probably more species in a square inch of the Amazon than there are in the poles. So whatever it's going to be, it's got to be quick because they've got 4 months to live and then they die. And they have to, pogaroos being fairly, in fact, being extremely complex animals, can't live their whole life cycle, die. They've got to die for the winter and then get 30 years worth of work out of them. But the ecology of Niflheim is very simple. And yes, lots of renewable algae paste, which is nice for a beginning. And one of the things, by the way, Andrew DeLay says the mosquitoes on this planet must be vicious. I hadn't given that any thought, but man, in areas where the tundra just thaws for a couple months of the year, like in the taiga in Russia or in Alaska, I've heard the mosquitoes in Alaska defy belief. Yes, of course, Marisha asked, will there be green milk like in The Last Jedi? Yes, of course. That's going to be the primary source of income for the Niflheim colony, is they're going to be selling green milk bottles. I've also looked into, and this is the last thing I'll say about the pogaroos and move on. I've also looked into them having, and I'm not sure this will work, but it might. I've looked into them having a sort of an adjustable form of what is it called? I'm playing around with the idea of seeing if it's possible to make them both warm-blooded and cold-blooded depending on the time of year. That may be it. The thing I do want to stress about them, and this is true for the pogaroos, but much more true for the predators of the pogaroos, and that is that these things are very, 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 very skittish. They run, and they are not poking around the outside of humans' camps, eating out of garbage cans. These things have to be very mysterious and very scarce. Omni-blooded, that's a great term, dude. I've never heard that term before, but maybe, maybe they're bi. So there you go. We can sketch all that in later. Right now, I've got the basics. I am definitely going to go back and redo the tales, because those complex tales are much more interesting than the simple ones. And I couldn't figure out what it was about that first video I showed you that wasn't quite sitting right with me. And then when I went back and looked at the earlier versions that has a longer tail and a lower and an upper membrane, and the way that those things flap together, I thought it was great. No, they don't lay eggs, and I think they probably have one offspring a year. That's right, they're pregnant when they die, and then when they revive, so they probably, I'm guessing, they probably give birth and mate like real early in the spring, and then they're gestating and growing the baby. I don't know. I haven't quite got that yet. We'll figure it out later. Just another quick topic before we move on to the questions. I was just doing a little bit of work on thinking about the space elevators. Air Techie's been doing outstanding work on the politics of Earth and so on, and we've got that almost finalized. But I was looking into space elevators, because the last scene of the pilot, for the Pioneer storyline anyway, is the and I got to ask you about this too, is the Turners getting out of their transportation at the base of a space elevator and just looking at this thing. So the Turners are on Earth at the end of the pilot episode, but they are about to get on board this space elevator, and so I was just doing some research onto space elevators, and Air Techie had laid out a couple places where they could be owned by various countries and so on. But here's something I did not know. Yeah, let me deal with that first. So Will Turner, I was going to just rename the Turners, but I kind of like the name. And I'm wondering, do you think if his name is Will Turner, do you think it's going to be like a fourth wall distraction? You think people are is it going to take people out of the story? You think that name is well enough known? Because I didn't make the connection. If it's the kind of thing where it's like people will go, oh, wait a minute, that's another character's name. It's a good name. Yeah, I kind of think so too. I'm really inclined to keep it, and it saved me a lot of trouble at this point, honestly. Okay, well then that's easy. Yoshi thinks the name is well enough known to the public. There are many Will Turners in the world. Might draw Disney lawyers. Well, they can't copyright a name, I don't believe. Now, if I had a pirate character named Will Turner, and by the way, does Will Turner survive all 5 of these movies, or wasn't that just Orlando Bloom's character? I'll check with my attorney. I'm really inclined to keep it this way. I'll check. We've got a really good entertainment attorney, and so I can talk to him about it. He's in 5? Okay. He makes a cameo in the 5th film. I'm inclined to keep it. And by the way, Will and the robot, that's intentional. But you get the idea. All right, anyway, we'll see. So we'll let the Turner thing go. Here's something I didn't know about space elevators, though. I was checking. We've got a bunch of them in the future, and that ownership of a space elevator is essential to the major powers on Earth, and they have to be positioned very close to the equator. Yeah, Robert Duvall. If you can remind me about that later, I'd like to talk about him. Robert Duvall died Yeah, that audience is age two. Anyway, so uh, so I was looking. Airticket was looking at places on the equator where space elevators could exist. Turns out that you can deviate from the equator by, according to Grok, up to 20 degrees. But once you get past 10 degrees, you really start taking a hit in efficiency, and the further away you go from the equator, the higher it gets, so that you can lose like 50% efficiency, and so on. So I was just looking at this, and I was wondering about, give me the names of places of countries that could have a space elevator based on their, fact that they're on the equator or close to it. I wanted, even before Airtechie and I were working on the politics of the planet, I'd always imagined that Kwajalein would be where I'd want to take the Turners from. I just love the name Kwajalein. I love everything we built in Kwajalein. I love all of that stuff. So far so good. Australia is too far away, I think. And most of them were on Earth, and you can put a bunch of them across Africa. You can put them in Ecuador, which was named after the equator, and a number of other places, and so on. But anyway, I did the just checking with Grok about this, and I haven't talked. I just did. I haven't talked to Airtechie about this at all yet. But according to Grok, the latest preference, are you ready for this, is have them be in the oceans. And I thought, that can't be right. And I realized that that I did not have the physics of the space elevators clear in my head, because my previous feeling was that they had to have massive, like really massive anchoring into the ground. I actually was thinking maybe there's not enough ground in Kwajalein to be able to support the centrifugal pull of these things, because the one thing you can say about a space elevator is the tension, right? You got to have these things on tension. And Rough Ryan says you can get to that bedrock easier at the bottom of the ocean. But, this is the thing that I didn't know. All of the guys who are studying like real space elevators today, there's been a number of study groups for people who are really talking about building one. And what they're saying is, no, free-floating ocean platforms, like the oil rigs that can have little thrusters so they can stay over the thing. And I said, is that possible? Don't they need this enormous amount of math? And apparently, and this makes sense to me, apparently that's a misconception on my part. And the short form of it is the weight of the whole structure wants to bring it down to Earth. The centrifugal spin, there's a counterweight that's above geostationary orbit. The centrifugal force wants to pull it away from the Earth. And what I realized was, and I said, so Grok, theoretically, in perfectly calm air, in perfectly calm water, in perfectly calm everything, if this thing is balanced correctly, you could attach it to the Earth with a piece of kite string, right? And he said, precisely. The entire structure is balanced by design so that the weight of it and the centrifugal pull of it cancel each other out. And it's essentially neutral. It doesn't have weight, and it doesn't want to fly away. Now, needless to say, there's constantly things like winds and so on. But the latest designs are saying all you really need is and not really an enormously big subsurface. Imagine a big subsurface submarine, like a big one, like a Typhoon or something like that. Okay, and it's below the waves, so it's not getting banged around by the waves. And that is enough of an anchor. It doesn't have to be this massive, huge, massive thing, because you balance it so that the weight equals the surface. Air Techie says a large surface ship would do. Right. If you put the counterweight below the ocean, you don't get any wave action. But the main point that Greg spent a lot of time talking about was saying that there are parts of the Pacific, right? This is true for pretty much everywhere in the equator at sea, but in the Pacific, they're just enormous expanses where there aren't any hurricanes or typhoons because there's no Coriolis force to spin them up. They're not above or below the equator, and that right on the equator, the doldrums, there's very little wind, very little storms. There haven't been typhoons or hurricanes in some parts of the Pacific in recorded history. It just goes to these calm spots. And then he was saying that that with adequate thrusters, if it turned out there was some weather coming your way, you could move the whole rig out of the way. The doldrums, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Referent. You could just move it. And it's apparently the way to go now. Let's see. Jay Smith said, wouldn't the elevator full of people or cargo be a dynamic weight load? The balance would be constantly changing. Correct. So I think there's a lot to unpack here. I just heard this the first time today earlier, to be honest with you, I don't really like the idea. I really like the look of something just gigantic and massive. So, which brings me to my topic on the space elevator. So I check YouTube, and I do a search for space elevator, and I didn't see Ad Astra. But I did see the scenes where clips where Brad Pitt falls off the space elevator. And I thought that's pretty cool. And then I discovered a movie called, I think it's called The Traveling Earth. Has anybody heard of that before? The Traveling Earth. Turns out there's a Traveling Earth 1 and a Traveling Earth 2. And Traveling Earth came out in 2019. It was produced by the Chinese Communist Party. It's Chinese Wandering Earth. Sorry, Wandering Earth. Thanks, Coffee Gennaro. So the first one came out, and oh man, and I thought Moonfall was tough. In the Wandering Earth, the sun is unexpectedly starting to go through a supergiant red phase. It's just happening much earlier. And so what they decide to do is they decide to move the Earth to Alpha Centauri. And I just thought, well, somebody here doesn't understand physics. So anyway, in the story, they build like 7,000 of these massive, huge thrusters right into the Earth, and they stop the Earth's rotation and all these things, and and they blast the Earth to Alpha Centauri, which I would imagine take a while. So put that idiocy away. There is a scene that I found on YouTube about a terrorist attack on one of the space elevators, and I have to tell you, the way they treated the interior, especially the capsules, the actual capsules, was terrific. I mean, it was just terrific. Yeah, it makes Space Andrew DeLay, what you're saying, Space 1999 isn't realistic. I laughed out loud at Space 1999, but moving the moon is child's play compared to this. The moon doesn't have significant rotation, and the moon doesn't have an atmosphere that you have to blow through with your thrusters. In any event, I cannot recommend the scene highly enough. It's about an 18-minute scene. There's a terrorist drone attack on the space elevator, and the effects are phenomenal. But the interior of these capsules, I was envisioning them as a passenger capsule. I was envisioning them as the size of maybe a 747 or something like that. But these guys have these enormous squares, and they're driving trucks into them, and all these people are sitting in this thing. I liked it a lot. The one thing I didn't like and didn't understand at all was that in the Wandering Earth, the space elevators are powered by rockets. They just sit in there, they load them up, and rockets just blast them off. And I thought, isn't that the entire point of a space elevator? is that you don't have to waste that kind of fuel. You can just use electric motors. Um, with all that said, I highly recommend checking it out. Here, in fact, let me grab you the link because it is a um, really good look at uh, the scale of the thing. And this is one of the things that I'm actually a little bit concerned about um, is I'm not thinking big enough, especially for the future. Yeah, this CDance 2.0 is going to be available soon, and I think most of my problems are going to be over. Um, and let me find it. That is. And man, is this thing badly written and badly acted. But check this out. It's 20 minutes. Um, get the link and I'm going to post it. Hang on a second. Here it comes. Copy. And then we go here. Bada bing. And then we go here. Bada bing. Um, I'll tell you one thing I did like about Wandering Earth, and it's very strange. It's first of all, the entire thing is almost impossible to follow. The special effects are quite good. They're very good, in fact. But the Chinese screenwriting is not so great. But what was interesting though was that I think Gambia, someplace like that. CDance is CCCP controlled. Yeah, I'm taking whatever engines they got. Anyway, here in the Wandering Earth, they've got a one world government, the United Earth government, or something like that. And in the scene I just linked to, there's like a bunch of African guys there, and then there's like an American guy, there's an Australian guy, there's British guys, there's Russian guys, Chinese guys. They've all got the one world government, then their national patch below it. And what's interesting is everybody's speaking their own language, but everybody understands each other. It's almost like in the future everybody speaks 11 languages or something. Interesting take. I like the fact that the African guys from Africa were speaking Swahili or whatever the case it is. Um, so there you go. Um, I asked Grok. I said, "How about this, Grok? What if because geostationary orbit, you'd think is a couple hours. It's a 5-day trip, man. It's like a cruise. It's crossing the Atlantic." So I asked Grok. I said, "Okay, look, um, just give me the numbers on this. Uh, let's say that when you're in this capsule, as it starts to accelerate out of off the ground, let's say you take a 1.5 G load tops, 1.5 G, and then as you get further from the Earth's gravity goes down. But I said maintain a constant G, 1 G up to the midpoint, flip the pod over, and then 1 G deceleration on the other end. And it turns out you can get to geostationary orbit in about an hour and a half, but your top speed is 43,000 miles per hour." And Grok said that just there's no way that the materials can take that kind of strain and all the rest of that stuff. So they are, most engineers and scientists and science fiction guys that are studying this are saying it's likely to be a 4 or 5 day trip in 0 G most of the time. And I guess that probably works because, once you get off Earth, you're going to be in 0 G for a while. Even if you go to a station that's got spin gravity and get on a ship that's got spin gravity, when you're getting aboard, you're going to be in 0 G, so you might as well just get used to it, I guess. So anyway, you might want to take a look at that. It really did help me increase the scale of these things. because I just saw them as kind of like small capsules, and I think I probably got that idea from what was that? Was it like a Call of Duty game or something, or I don't think it was Battlefield. Isn't there a Call of Duty game where they have a whole action scene on the space elevator, which was like tiny? This thing is massive, and I thought, hey man, if you're going to go to the trouble to build a space elevator, you might as well build something that's going to be able to take a lot of stuff up into space. Modern Warfare, they easily get 40 or 50 passengers in there, and a lot of cargo. So anyway, I'm sure there's a practical limit, but it gave me it opened my eyes on just the scale of these things. P7 says if you're in deceleration, you still have only 1G downforce. No, if you're in a space, regardless of how fast you go, if you're in a space elevator, you got 1G on the ground. You got to accelerate, which means you're getting at least some kind of a G down. You have to take more than 1G to get off the Earth, right? So you got the 1G gravity field of the Earth, and then maybe an acceleration of half a G, and so on. But the thing is, on the other end, when you decelerate, you're going to take a G upward. You're going to take negative Gs, and nobody likes negative Gs. And so I'm thinking, and apparently nobody else has considered this. It seems to me the thing to do is you flip the capsule, just rotate it around the bearing, so that as you're decelerating, you're being pushed into your chairs, which is, from your perspective, downward. Aussie Drone Guy says, would you have to build it from space and work downwards? I honestly do not know what the plan is to build that, how that works. I would imagine that would be the case. I don't know how else you would do it. I don't think that those structures are rigid. I think they're all predicated on things like carbon nanotubes, carbon nanofibers, incredibly strong and light. So, there you go. Rishi says, wasn't there some project decades ago that had a tether break loose in space? It was like a mile long? Yes, there was a tether on a space shuttle mission where they strung something out for quite a long way. And I don't remember what that was for, but I do remember that was actually it. Okay, so anyway, here we go. It's 8 o'clock. We're 2 hours into the show, and it's time to get to questions. So let's see how we got here. I don't know if anybody saw the thumbnail I did for today's right angle, because Elon announced that he's going to the moon. We talked about this, I think, last week before he goes to Mars. But this is one of my favorite thumbnails ever. I just love this. I just love it. And I remember getting the idea for it. I just think it's so freaking cool. We just had the idea for it, and I thought, perfection. Isn't that cool? I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so let me find our questions here. You can look at the awesomeness, and then I'll switch back here. Get to find our members, member form. Boom. So we got a Marusha Dark. We got another Marusha Dark. We got a Roadrunner. We got a Capital G Geek. We got a Robert Line. We got a Robert Line. We got a Bob Neef. We got Eric Blake. Got a Jaser McFarland, and we got an Eric Ashiro. Well, we're gonna have to kick butt. Okay, yeah, that's funny. I just saw Eric Oshiro's Nell Armstrong monument. It's pretty funny. Let me move these out of the way, and we'll get our windows all set up here. All right, here we are, babies. Yeah, I love that thumbnail. Okay, I turn this pictures off. You go away. You want to turn this picture off. You go away. I think it's really cool. By the way, many years ago, some of you remember when we were talking about the free frontier. That's got to be, geez, 7, 8 years ago at least. And I was talking about a commercial where you see the first Chinese landing on the moon, and everybody's like, oh my God, and all people of the world are watching, and the Chinese are crying with joy, and then you pan around, and there's like a bunch of Americans just sitting there watching, and there's like a casino in the background, and they go get their bags, and they drive them to the hotel, that kind of thing. I just loved it. I'm not going to do it now, but I might do that, and the only reason I would do that commercial is, number one, Elon's going to the moon, and number two, I would do that seriously with SpaceX in the hopes of catching the eye of Mr. Musk, who probably shedding $1 million bills hither and yon. I sure do wish somebody could have shown him Apollo 11, what we saw. I mean, I still can't. That's really hard to believe. Anyway, all right, here we go. Marusha Dark, topic, 4 futures. Tom Bilyeu has often outlined 4 distinct paths he believes humanity will ultimately fall into as their future. The 4 factions existing simultaneously in parallel. All right, that's cool. 1, the Neo-Amish. Luddites who want to freeze technology and culture to around the early 2000s, pre-LLMs, pre-AGI, that's artificial general intelligence, self-aware intelligence, engineering, and pre-robots. They tend to be hyper-religious, perhaps even cult-like, treating a more advanced tech as demonic, clinging to tradition and superstition for its own sake. Many of the religious right will be in this camp. I just find that to be a trope. I'm not entirely sure about that, but certainly some kind of a... I don't think that the revolution against... I don't think that the idea that we don't need any more technology advancing in AI anyway automatically makes you religious, but we'll see. Number 2, Brave New World. Those who just want to drink, get high, do drugs, play video games, watch brain rot, and generally live as vegetables, surviving off their universal basic income. They won't really contribute anything, but generally won't cause any major issues either. They will just sort of exist as glorified pets and useless eaters to be taken care of and contained. Most normies, celebs, and bureaucrats will be in this camp. I agree with that one a lot more. I'd be willing to bet you, it's an interesting thought. What percentage, because this is, it's all speculation, and needless to say, I am ideologically and up until recently practically against the idea of universal basic income, but there is a fair amount of evidence that that AI and robotics could increase productivity to the point where there is simply so much more money available. There's so much more production that a universal basic income could in fact be something that didn't require taking everything from the producers, because that's the end. So stay with me on this. My question to you, live chat readers and those of you who watch the show recorded, is, of the people who are out there today, the number of people out there today, what percentage of them do you think would accept universal basic income on the condition that it meant at least temporary sterilization? In other words, in order for you to get your universal basic income, you had to have some kind of a birth control implant or something like that, and that it was reversible if once you gave up the universal basic income. Marusha Dark says at least 1/3. I think the number would be much higher. I think it'd be much, much higher. I think among young people, if you told them you don't have to worry about rent, you don't have to worry about your food, you don't have to worry about transportation, Eric says, I'd say most of them, I think it'd be 80%. I genuinely do. And I think if you presented it that way, I think the people that are currently living on welfare they wouldn't have a choice, right? They wouldn't have a choice. That's the deal. If you want universal basic income, we'll give it to you, but we're not going to allow you to have 11 kids who will all go on to universal basic income. They're going to have 30 kids. We're just not going to do it. And nobody's forcing sterility on you, nothing. It's just simply this: you want this deal or don't you? I think the a large majority would take it. And let me see if I'm stealing somebody's line here, because it looks like they're on the same track as I am. Who is that? That is Quality 1701. Considering the birth rate issues we are facing, this would be deadly to us as a species. Yes and no. I think, this is a touchy subject, but it seems to me that we already have. We have to face the reality that a significant portion of our population is already on universal basic income, paid for by taxpayers, and currently they're having 6, 7 kids on public assistance because they're incentivized to. The more kids they have, the more money they get. It seems to me like it would be a way. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. Jack says it'd be a catastrophe to the nation, and I'm completely agreeing. But what's happening now is the people that are reproducing the most are the ones that are, generally speaking, contributing the least. I mean, you can call it whatever you want to. That seems to be what the numbers show. Tom says, believe me, I pay for my 4 kids, and rightfully so. And I think conservatives would simply, absolutely reject the deal. The reason I bring it up is, yes, it would cause the eventual sort of gentle dying off of people through lack of reproduction. There's no camps. There's none of it. It's reversible. If it doesn't happen, the demographics are not encouraging. It's an interesting thought. And it should be reversible, because if it's not reversible, I'm against it on moral terms, offhandedly. I'm against it on moral terms regardless, because I think it is turning humans into, Mercer said, pets. What's the point? Trinity says, mankind without striving for something will die out. Yes, I completely agree. But we have this problem, and it's an interesting way to think about it. I am petrified of that, Ready Player One future where everybody just sits around in their VR glasses or whatever, and instead of just seeing things to get all the sensations, the idea that humans just become like in the Matrix, they're just in a tank and they have no experiences that aren't virtual, and they don't do any thinking, and they don't do any reading, and it's like, what's the point, But it's here. I mean, it's here, and these alphas are not reading, and they don't read, and they don't want to read. They say there's no reason for me to read. I'll have my AI read it to me. What do you do without this? Hardship is a maybe I subliminally caught Chase's comment there, but hardship is a predator. Hardship kills the lazy and the weak. And without predators, you end up with what we're seeing. Trinity Water says, back to eugenics. I cannot be clear enough about this, okay? Not just because of, left or anything. I mean, just cannot be clear enough about this, okay? Eugenics, selected breeding, selected sterilization, any kind of modification of the species by engineers, I am absolutely 100% against. But what we're seeing now is that people are making free will choices that are producing catastrophic results. And this has to be addressed. Now, the way to address it that would be nice would be to get people excited about education, stop indoctrinating them, give them a future to believe in, give them a chance. One of the things I was talking about, I don't know if it was if I was talking to Airtechie about it or not, but I was saying that one of the many things I want to accomplish with the colonies is I want the colonies to look like you could go tomorrow. That there's nothing stopping us from doing this now. Star Trek created so many engineers, and this idea that it's not magic. Uh, I'm not sure. Richard says we can't even get people excited about opposing income taxes, so I'm not hopeful in relying on humanity. What I'm saying, look, here's what I'm circling around, trying to get a handle on. Right now in the country, there are essentially two different camps, and it's not even Republicans or liberals, conservatives, or anything. There are people who believe in hard work and personal gain, personal responsibility, all this stuff, and then there's people that don't, who want the government to give them stuff and to take it from these people, right? That's a fact. And welfare has destroyed 3 or 4 generations of Americans by now, and that's a fact. You don't have to worry about the productive people, people with a strong moral core, who are not poisoned by feminism and so on. They have biological imperatives to have kids. They want to have large kids and all the rest of it. What you're talking about doing here is reducing the counterweight. It's a discussion, and it's a real world discussion. It's not theoretical anymore. Okay, number 3 on those things: life on hard mode, space explorers, entrepreneurs, inventors, people who live off the grid. This is the colonies. Those who actively seek hardship and challenge in the real world, even at great cost, but who don't necessarily reject more advanced forms of technology outright. You and Elon would be in this camp. Yes, I would. 4, the Matrix. Those who, when such becomes possible, upload their consciousness into machines to live in infinite virtual worlds that they help design, create, explore with little time spent in the real world. Alternatively, those who merge with robot bodies or genetically engineered bodies that exceed the biological limits of normal humans, perhaps seeking immortality. Tom and I would be in this camp. In terms of the world and story for the colonies, you seem to have number 3 on lockdown. All the main characters follow this path. Have you thought about how to incorporate the other categories? In 250 years, they will surely exist in the same universe, perhaps with several splintering offshoots and with characters from each faction, some good, some bad, some indifferent. Plenty of opportunity for conflict, cooperation, and ideation. I have given it some thought. For example, I showed a couple of renderings of. So the nice thing about this is there's so much space. I mean, so much space that it allows for a tremendous fracturing of the human condition, and especially when you get off the grid, you don't have to have a quantum probability line to colonize other systems. You could get there by the same kind of slower than light ships that we're using. You get up to 80% of the speed of light. So it's not like generation ships. You just got everybody sleeping for 10, 12 years. And you can go and you can just basically go and survey your own solar system without the ability to constantly be able to travel back and forth easily. And I am setting it up so that there are hundreds of ships that have been lost. And we don't know how many of them have survived and gone off the grid. I did talk about that subsect of humans who start genetically engineering themselves, and they genetically engineer their psychology so that they have no desire to live on the surface of a planet. They are xenophobic, not like the cultural term, but genuinely xenophobic. Agoraphobic, I should have said. They are psychologically modified to really be comfortable in small, enclosed, pressurized spaces. And if you put them on the surface of a planet in a beautiful summer meadow, they would lose their minds. same way that a claustrophobe would if you locked him in a pressurized tube for the rest of his life. And since they live in space, they don't need legs, so those are out. Arthur C. Clarke talked about that. I think he said if you're in zero G all the time, 2 legs are just useless mass that you have to feed and you have to move around. And he said it'd be much better to engineer another pair of arms where your legs are so you could grab onto things. Okay, it makes sense to me. I can also envision a cyber world, although I don't know what the cyber world people would have to leave the planet for. I mean, if you're gonna go into that category 4 of uploading your consciousness can live anywhere, can live inside the ship. You become a ship. I do like the idea of I like the idea of having genetically enhanced humans in one place and cybernetically advanced humans in other places. It's kind of a trope. In fact, it's a very big trope. But I gotta say, there is something about the cyberpunk future that is both aesthetically pleasing and alarming and feels somewhat inevitable. I definitely don't want to get too much into the whole cyberpunk thing, but to the degree that it does exist, I think it exists. The farther away from the frontier you are, the more of that you see. I think when you get to the actual frontier, no one's got the inclination for that. It just feels like the kind of people that are willing to go through hardship. It feels like the category 3. It's not something category 3 people would do. So to a degree, I think this is a really interesting breakdown. In fact, I think it's a very interesting breakdown, and I'm gonna do a screen cap. What happened? Of that. What did I do? How did I get in? Oh, wait a minute. I think I somehow hit something in the. I did. I hit command something by accident that got me into the back end of WordPress. Let me find that again because I think that's good enough to do a screen cap on. Did it log me out? No? Here we go. Yeah, I'll just copy that because that's a very interesting thing. And look, I've still got 4 other storylines I have to start developing. Everything I've done so far has been on the Pioneer storyline. I've got 5 total, and I really need to start doing that. So, yeah. No, that's a really great question. Your horoscope for the year. Let's Marisha again. Tomorrow marks the year of the fire horse with the Chinese zodiac. Before you dismiss it out of hand, I thought you might be interested to know what that means symbolically, both for you and the country as a whole. I should mention that this is not news to me because my wife is a fire horse. Natasha is a fire horse. And so I've been hearing about this for a long time. The fire horse is a rare 60-year cycle. Natasha turns 30 this year. Last one being 1966. Yeah, that's right. Symbolizing intense energy, passion, motivation, and swift transformative change. As a double fire or yang fire year, it favors bold action, innovation, and leadership while cautioning against impulsivity, restlessness, and high tempers. Well, I'm boned. The horse, being a free spirit, represents personal and political independence as well as the wild and untamed. The horse is also the symbol of good health. For example, healthy as a horse. Endeavors taken during this year are likely to have a higher rate of either extreme success or extreme failure. Well, I think my chances of extreme success are high because I've mined the depths of extreme failure. Fire is the element of power and justice. I'm sure you're familiar with the Washington quote about government, like fire, being a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Fire can cook a man's food or can cook the man. In the negative, are risks of burnout and political violence if not controlled. In your case, Bill, you are an Aries under the Greek zodiac, which is also a fire sign. Yes, and so is Natasha. So taken metaphorically, these same positive and negative qualities of fire will be doubled again for you, particularly in March and April. Ultimately, this is a make or break year, like a rocket that will either reach the stars or crash and burn trying. Not sure if you believe in such things, but I thought it'd be fun to share what astrology and the occult have to say on the matter. First of all, I've heard about, as I said, Firehorse for quite a while. I didn't think about how it applied to me. I didn't think that it applied to the whole year. I have a general resistance to, especially astrology, to mysticism. However, I do concede that much of the open-mindedness that I've developed about religion should apply with some criticality towards mysticism. Regardless of the truth of this or not, it has been clear to me since September 8th. Since September 8th of 2025, I knew that this was going to be it. It was that everything that I'd wanted to do for my entire life, which is now available due to the technology and due to that rewiring of my brain when that donor made that massive donation, that 2026 is going to will tell the tale for Bill Little as far as his lifelong dreams of doing this science fiction project. I have pivoted it to this 100%. We lose probably 5-6 members a week, and that's terrifying. But I also know YouTube has changed. I've done 300 firewalls and afterburners. I don't have much left to say in that format. I don't feel like that that the YouTube window for commentary that I would like to do has passed. Now, there's political commentary in forms that I would be interested in, like truth bombs, but the decision I made shortly after September 8th, and I mean like 2-3 days after September 8th, when again that person just stood up and made a $250,000 donation on the spot. That rewired my brain, and I have made a 100% commitment to doing these colonies or die trying. I had that thought earlier today, as a matter of fact. I really earlier today said, believe it or not, it's true, said that this is the year I'm going to finally know whether this thing that I was always going to do after the next project, or when I get to this, or when this happens, it's either now or never. And so we'll see. We've had very good traction so far this year, and so I think I know I've made the right decision, because even if it fails, if I don't try it before I die, I will die an unhappy man, and I am going to be. I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm just not. I'm not going to take no for an answer. It's good to know that that if these cosmic harmonies and things are true, that this is a fortuitous year to try it, because this is the year I'm trying it, fortuitous year or not. That's a good way about thinking about it for me. This is that. In fact, that's exactly how I'd like to think about it. If there's something to this fire horse thing, and there might be, my wife's been talking about it forever, and she certainly is one. Because she's a 1966 fire horse, and I'm not, but I am a fire sign of Aries, so we're born. Her birthday's the 6th, mine's the 7th, so it's good to know that all of the signs and indications and portents are good. But if all of them were terrible, I'd be doing it anyway, because it's got to be now. So it's nice to know that that the wind is in my back here. So thank you for that information, and that's good to know. Roadrunner, hey, greetings, friend Bill. Hello, friend Roadrunner. Every once in a while, you see something on the internet that makes you slap your forehead and say "duh" or go, as the case may be. I just had one of those moments. I've always admired Elon Musk and marveled at what he's accomplished, but I've always missed one of the most important factors that makes him a truly great man. He has de-Dilbertized the manufacturing field. Interesting. There's a link there. Catherine Boyle just identified Elon Musk's most important contribution to America has nothing to do with the products he shipped. Boyle, general partner at A16Z, or whatever that is. I think Elon's most important contribution to this country is training two generations of engineers to work with his hands. Yes, and this is why I think I'm not gonna try and get Elon involved with anything. I'm not even going to get him involved until comes time for the first raise for the pilot episode. But given the amount of money I'm trying to raise for the pilot, which is about 600 grand, if I can show him enough of the stuff that shows people being competent, then I'm going to try very hard to get that in front of him. And the total amount of money that we're talking about is, I'm not one of those people who says, you only got so much money, but he does. And it's pretty clear where his beliefs are. So if I can show something that shows not just engineering, just competence, this whole purpose of doing a CAS 27 as the equivalent of the Chosen's, what was it called? The Shepherd, was it? Their proof of concept thing, is that it's about father-son relationship. It's about dad teaching the boy how to be not just a man, but how to work things, how to run things. That's when I'm going to approach him, and there we go. We'll see. Concentrating on actually producing good quality products, whether they're automobiles or space launch vehicles. No meetings to discuss future meetings or developing an app that would generate clicks on the internet or other trivia that does not get a viable product out the door or into space. According to Catherine Boyle, general partner at A16Z, I think Elon's most important contribution to this country is training two generations of engineers to work with their hands again. I believe that this is a concept that Mike Rowe would strongly endorse. What are your thoughts? Mike contacted me not week, would have been 10 days ago, roughly, and talked to him. I've already got Mike's endorsement, and I'd frankly really like Mike to be in the show, and I really think he'd make an excellent Jake. I haven't seen a lot of his dramatic acting, but Mike got started in opera, so he's certainly got the chops for it. And I'd like him, I'd like him to be a part of it. So I don't know for a certain fact that Mike Rowe has the ability to get in touch with Elon Musk, but if I had to bet money, I bet he could. In fact, I know he could. So it's all about bootstrapping. The traditional Hollywood bootstrapping model for independent films is you've got your project and you talk to somebody about it and they say they might be interested in it. It depends on what the script would be like, and then you would go to some other guy and say this guy's interested and he's reading it, and you basically you're not really lying, but you're kind of you just kind of bootstrap yourself up. Then somebody says, okay, if you can get this guy involved, then I'm in. And then you go to that guy and he says, well, he says he's in if you're in. And then he says, well, I actually like working with him. And so you basically build a castle out of nothing, and it actually works. Marisha says, could you get in touch with Jeremy and get him to show the Apollo 11 series? I could. I would have thought he would maybe have done that already, but I will hold off on that until the time comes. So there's that. Alan Matthews says, your work with AI is one of the only things that gives me any hope. I'm tired of watching figures change and mutate. Integrity is the missing element in the AI slop being produced. Thank you, Alan. Let me show you something real quick here. I meant to show it to you guys earlier. It's just going to be tough to rescale. I'll just do it real quick. I know where it is. Give me 1 second. Let's go with. Okay, that's a good enough example, I guess. Right? All right, so here I'll just do this real quick. This is what's taken me a lot of time, and it's tedious. It's really tedious, and it took a lot of time, and I want to be playing, I want to be rendering cool things and all that jazz, but I didn't, to my credit, I would say. So let me show you two things here. In order to get, I had to get the face first, and then I had to find. Actually, I'm glad I did this by accident because if somebody wanted to talk to you guys about, get your opinion on it. But these are the basic. It's like playing scales when you're a pianist. You gotta do the basics. So when I turn these guys off. Okay, so here. Given this, and I got to do one more image. Hang on. One more. Sorry. So, because he was talking about the drift and AI slop and stuff, and this is the hard work you have to do. It's very time-consuming and tedious in order to avoid that. And I never did show this to you, and I wanted to. And I wanted to ask you guys another question too. So I can go there, hide this. So here are two images for you. Where did that go? Oh, that's where it did go. Okay. Hang on. Okay. So, in order to get this right, I had to do a lot of work, refining the face and so on. And then I had some fun work where I could take Jake's body and then put different outfits on him. But this is what I generated in order to get Cast 27 done. Okay, so here is my reference frame for Jake. Hang on, YouTube. So I load this as a reference frame into the animation engine, and so it knows when Jake walks around what Jake looks like from different angles, and the back and his clothes and all the rest of it. And that's great, but there's only so much resolution in this image. So what happens when Jake gets close to the camera? Well, I had to make a second set of reference images, which are these. And I've done these at 8K. Each one of those is a 4K frame. Hang on. So that with both of those loaded, I can show Jake at the distance. He's wearing his outfit, and then I can zoom into his eyelashes, and it holds together. And you'll notice that the outfits are the same in the close-ups and in the mid shots. Come on, Bill. That. And like that. So here's a question, and I've been thinking about this a lot. If you look at these images, right, this is what Jake's going to be wearing during CAS 11. And what I really want is, just time out briefly, Marisha says, Bill, would you consider making a standalone video tutorial on how to make these turnarounds and prep shots? When we, and I think this is going to happen very near future, like certainly by the end of February. I think by the end of February, we've had enough interest in this already from people. Hey, thank you very much, Dar Sniper. Good to see you, and have a good night. I think by the end of February, we will be able to have the website up and start generating buzz, the Colony's website and the Colony's YouTube channel. And then I will be doing a lot of here's how we do the behind the scenes stuff. One of the things that's been most successful for the Chosen was all of the behind scenes stuff they do. And this is going to require hiring a social media person who knows what they're doing, so that we are constantly taking care of putting content out on a regular basis, so that, you know, we're building viewership and we're building interest. And one of the things that builds interest with people who are interested is the behind the scenes stuff. But here's my question for you, and I can do this to the entire audience for the Colonies, potential audience for the Colonies, in a month or two. This is how Jake is going to look when he actually have him. Yeah, hang on, just so you know the kind of the things I do for you guys here. So I got this, but when it comes time for Jake to actually go outside, I got to go to this. Got to convert this to a sizable show. Copy, and we'll put it over. One moment, please. We'll put it in here. So when he's outside, he's wearing that outfit you just saw. But when he goes out, because he's got to go out of the rover to get into this, into CAS 27, which is a abandoned habitat of some kind. So when that happens, the AI needs to know what he looks like when he's outside. And that is this. Come on. Almost there. Okay. So when he goes outside, it's got to go to this. Yes, Rough Ryan just heard the news about Robert Duvall. It's he's a legend. Here it is. So that reference frame you're looking at now has to turn into this one. Hang on, YouTube. Because this is what Jake looks like outside when he's going into the habitat. Now, the great thing about this AI is it will take this reference image and it will light it correctly. If he's outdoors and it's overcast, it'll put a blue ambient light on him. If he goes inside into a red lit room, it'll turn him red. But this shows the AI the geometry of him, and I also have close-ups of his face with the respirator on for the same reason that I had the other stuff on too. But here's a question I was curious to get an answer from you guys. So if you could make a comment, this would be the one to do it on. It's very intentional that I wanted him to look like a regular guy who lives in a harsh environment. I didn't want him in, you know, space clothes. But I am a little bit concerned that this is maybe not sci-fi enough. I'm going for realism and comfort, and I'm wondering if I need to make this not a space suit, but just a little more futuristic. Um, I'm a little concerned about that. I personally really like it. I think he looks great, and as I said before, what that question was about making all this stuff um, doable. You know, making a future that you believe could be actually engineered. Um, I think there is some concern that he's not sci-fi enough, but I don't know. These are not his. That's not his cold suit, by the way. This is what he's wearing inside the rover, and come on, Bill, where are you? Oh, I see what I'm doing. Okay, okay, looks like a cool father. Good enough. That's all I wanted to hear. Save myself a lot of work. Now, when so I want to be clear on this. He's not planning to go out and explore this habitat. This is what he's wearing inside the rover to be more or less comfortable. And that's why he's got that funny looking thing in his mouth. It's essentially an emergency respirator because he's going to need some additional oxygen when he's outside. When he goes outside to work, he's going to be in much more believable warm weather clothing and have a full face respirator with a tank on the back. But for just him looking like a guy who's going for a drive, I thought it actually looked pretty good. I'm glad to hear that's a lot of people are coming back saying it looks fine. So there's that. Let's see. We got Capital G Geek. Did I get everything there? Okay. Let's get like, come on, Bill. One more. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Found a copy of a bunch of old PJTV videos I'd saved, including Afterburners, Trifectas, in your interview with Wafa Sultan. Are there specific ones you're looking for? Actually, yes, I'm looking for all of them. Also, about your church idea for the colonies, please don't. What you're describing is ecumenicism. It worked just as well as any other nonpartisan idea linking opposing sides to an issue. In 200 plus years, they haven't figured out that peaceful Islam is just an advanced party for larger and less peaceful groups. Well, it's a good point, but I also realized that at no point in this did I envision Muslims being there. I just don't. I don't see any. I wasn't really planning on seeing any Buddhisms either. Basically, they were pretty much Christians and a small Jewish population. I completely agree, and one of the points that I'm aggressive about making, although God knows I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this, by 250 years from now, it should be pretty clear that that this diversity business and multiculturalism doesn't work. There is no there is no multicultural society on the earth that works. And all of the people that are coming here for the multiculturalism are leaving places that are monocultural. I think we're going to look back on this as the great experiment. I mentioned briefly that this thing was that we were going to look back on our time called the Age of Insanity, and so I certainly don't. I was being crystal clear about it not being a monolithic religion, I just like the idea that people kind of come together for. It's a hassle to come to this facility. They live 30 miles away, by rover, and that Sunday became kind of the cultural center of the colony because it was a chance for everybody to be in the same place at the same time. So I was trying to have it both ways. I made it clear that I'm not saying that there's no difference between Catholics or Episcopalians or anything. I'm just saying everybody went out there, and then it became more of a social lunch. So I might have oversold the idea that they're doing sort of a mono religion. It was clear to me that I needed to protect each one of the denominations, and while I don't think I'm going to make a point that there's no Islam there, I think I'm just going to assume that they're not. That's not to say that they are not in space. One of the backstories for Earth's history is this idea that what we're seeing now with the destruction of the West is that it was a enormous cultural followed by an actual military push. It just basically cut a diagonal slash across Europe from the Saudi Arabian Peninsula all through southern Europe, right through the Middle East, southern Europe, right up to the British Isles, and that by the time of the colonies, I described it as a tsunami that swept across Europe and is now in retreat, leaving nothing but debris. There is a version of Europe which is further away from Western Europe that survives as Europe, and the political center of that superstate is Poland, and so it's not all over for them, but Southern Europe and France and Germany is gone, and I actually hypothesized the idea that this Muslim military takeover, and by the way, the name of that superstate is Dar al-Islam, gets to the English Channel and doesn't actually invade the British Isles because of a British insurgency. It's not that they've lost their country culturally, but there's enough cussedness left in the Brits and the Scots and the Irish to actually stop the militarization of Britain at the Channel by Dar al-Islam. And this happens 100 years before the present day in terms of the colonies. And I really like that idea. And that would mean right now, in terms of the time of the colonies, all of Southern Europe is Islam is back on the retreat again, and it's nothing but wreckage. But there is a centralized Europe. Erteki basically called it Free Europe that survived, mostly because of Poland, which I like a lot historically, and that the British rallied, and that currently there is an insurgency going on in the British Isles, where the native Brits, some small percentage of them anyway, are refusing to be assimilated, and they don't think resistance is futile. So I really like the fact that we can show what 150, 200 years of Islam did to Paris and London, but that the British are holding on, and that the British are actively petitioning to be part of this European it's called the Central European Confederation, I think, and they're actively petitioning to join that. The Scandinavia survived somehow, probably because it's too cold, and there's this kind of band that runs through Poland into parts of Austria, north through the Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway are able to reverse the tide. And the reason, it's funny you mentioned that. Roadrunner says, "All hail Amelia." I was originally going to just write England off, but but in that letter I was talking with Air Techie about in terms of the future politics. I said I was just going to write Britain off and just make it part of the Dar al Islam, and then I thought, and I wrote, like I said, but then I was thinking about Amelia, and yeah, so we'll see. Aussie Drone Guy says, "I'm looking for Matilda for Australia." I think every country should do one. I know for a certain fact I saw a Swedish one, and I saw I know I saw a Swedish one. But yeah, I was going to say, Air Techie says the Brits hold the north of England, and the Scots are still holding Scotland, and they didn't get to to Ireland, so so that's where there is there's an actual open civil war going on there, as they fight to get that back, and the damage to Britain is horrible. But that's how it's been with Islam before. It's very aggressive and very totalitarian, and they have tremendous belief in themselves, which is great. But what they don't seem to be able to do is to hold the line after conquest, and everything just goes to hell, because there's not an Islamic country on the earth that's not, just a crap hole. So there we go. So Capital G Geek, let me think about that some more, and we'll see if we can come to something that we both can live with. Robert Line. Hello, Bill. The topic I'd like to discuss tonight is the perils of quantum space travel. Based on my reading of current physics textbooks and articles posted online, quantum entanglements hold the possibility of near instantaneous transportation across vast distances of space, but they also hold their own particular dangers. For example, the way I see it, there are 4 particular ways a quantum-based transportation system could go wrong. One is a basic failure of entanglement, which means the objects of traveling vessel get scattered across space-time at random. 2, you try to perform the quantum-based transposition into a gravity well, in which case you'll end up in an alternate universe. 3, there's a statistically significant chance of going backwards in time. Will we plan to address any of these in the colonies? And 4, some of the particles lose entanglement while the bulk do not, in which case you might get where you wanted to go, but you're missing key elements, part of the ship, crew members, organs, etc. Will the movement we see between the stars in the colony address these potential failures? Yes. We are not dealing with space-time. You cannot move faster than light through space-time. There have been theoretical attempts to figure out what it takes to do wormholes and warp drives and all of that stuff, and the energy requirements are enormous, approaching infinite, because you have to drag space-time with you. The only time I ever felt good about having to cheat faster than light travel is when I started really looking at quantum information theory, and so what we're going to do is we're going to use technology for a few milliseconds to convince 2 parts of space that they are the same part of space. Not convince the space-time, convince the quantum information layer that generates space-time. So I am determined, 100% determined, to not only abandon every single space-time term, but I've got a number of different places where the future history will look back at this 250-year period as the age of confinement, because Einstein, and I really don't think this can be overstated. I've never heard anyone talk about this before. When Einstein said you cannot travel faster than light, he didn't just take away interstellar travel, he took away our future. He took away humanity's future by doing that. He confined us to the solar system, and there is no way around it. And one of the points I'm going to make, and and I might make it in a sermon. I mean, if you're going to give somebody a sermon, you might as well have it during a sermon. Um, I'm not. Marusha says you need to get Eric Weinstein to consult on this. He's always talked about conquering Einstein and breaking out of relativity prison. We're not breaking out of relativity, and we're not conquering Einstein. We are end running Einstein. We are as to Einstein as Einstein was to Newton. We just look at him as an intermediate form of physics, that relativity physics and everything like dark matter and dark energy and all the rest of this stuff are just band-aids to get around the fact that we do not fully understand how the universe works until we get to the quantum level. And so I am just determined to it is critically important from a storytelling point of view to change the language. It's almost impossible. I'm starting to get over it now, but it was almost impossible for me to not use words like stargates, wormholes, and all the rest of it. I want that I want that information. I want that that lingo and that terminology gone. You're never going to hear it. Oh my gosh, look at this. Robruss8805 with a $100 super chat. Thank you so much. I missed one earlier. Thank you. Roadrunner has one for $20. Bill, what do the colonists on Niflheim call themselves? Niflheimians? Just wondering. I don't know what it is. It's a great question, Roadrunner. I'll tell you this. Whatever it is, it's going to be sarcastic. The one thing I could not remember the name Niflheim. I couldn't remember it. Air Techie says depends on how far you go. Yes, that's right. You have to stay very little. I've got entire lectures on this on the thing. I could not remember the name of it until I realized that they call the planet Sniffelheim instead of Niflheim because it's so cold they get the flu all the time. And thank you so much for those super chats, both of you. And Robruss, $100. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much that means to me. Nilfs or something? No, it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something different. I don't know what it is yet. I'll know it when I hear it. I don't think it'll even. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it doesn't have the word Niflheim in it. It'll be something, but it's a great point. Gotham Coach says someone just made a $100,000 movie and it's 100% AI made in one day. Hollywood is cooked. They are cooked. I heard Rob Schneider basically showed a picture of what we can do with AI now, and basically said to Hollywood, "You had your chance. You had the country. You blew it. We don't need you anymore. It's over." Moby, you could get stung by Obi. 36-year-old bald-headed fag, blow me. You don't know me. You're too old. Let go. It's over. Nobody listens to techno. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be something. It certainly will not be Niflheimers. I suspect that as the episode goes on, well, look, Niflheim is going to have to. It's a NACAD colony, which is the the successor to the United States and Canada and so on. The world is merging into super states, and the USA is the last country to do it. But we have one of the things I've never talked about is the war of independence, and where I'm going to position Niflheim. I've been doing a lot of work with Air Techie on this, and one of the things I said, and this is just the reality of it. Ultimately, this is my vision of the future, and so I get to decide things. When people give me good ideas, I love to incorporate them and credit them, and when they give me ideas that are better than the ideas that I had, I use them enthusiastically. But ultimately, it's got to be one person's vision, and so it's going to be mine, and that means that I can all of us working together in terms of contributions, but essentially I can make the universe anything I want it to be, so long as I don't violate the laws of physics, it doesn't spit in the face of logic, and as long as I don't break the rules once I make the rules. So this is why the foundation is so important. Once the foundation has been laid, anything you do to break that is retconning something, and it destroys the integrity of the structure of this imaginary world that you've created. So everything's got to get done right in the beginning, or else you have to really go and undo stuff once it's been done. You can set it up any way you want to, but once it's set up, it's got to stick that way. And so one of the things I want to do, because number one, I'd like to get people interested in history, and number two, it certainly saves me a lot of work, because history is truth is stranger than fiction. So the story of the actual independence of the colonies is going to be a one-for-one copy of the Revolutionary War, because the Revolutionary War happened logically. You had a really, really small number of very tough, dedicated people fighting the most powerful nation in the world, and they didn't do frontal charges. They just plain ran away. And when they did strike, they struck with audacity and suddenness, and then they got the hell out of the way. And ultimately, the American Revolution succeeded because they wore down the British Empire. There's an old expression that they made the game not worth the candle. What that means is, if you're in the old days, before we had electricity, and in the near future when we no longer have electricity, if you wanted to play a game of cards or play a game of chess or whatever, you would have to do it by candlelight. And if it turned out to be a poor game, you burned a candle, wasted a candle, so one-shot deal a candle, and you wasted a candle so you would say the game wasn't worth the candle. And what it comes down to is the Americans made the game not worth the candle. We never actively defeated the entire British army. We simply kept getting out of their way. It wasn't 11 years. You'd think I'd know exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was 11 years. We got out of their way until the point where they simply just didn't have the stomach to keep reinforcing it. Quibo says the French were our allies. They were. I looked at a lot of details of the Revolutionary War. They were pretty unreliable in terms of being where we wanted them to be. But there's no question that they made it possible. Would it have failed without the French? I don't know. But I do know that that when the French actually did step up at Yorktown, that was when Cornwallis's army was trapped, and when Cornwallis's army surrendered, that's when the British realized, okay, we're basically going to have to start from scratch, and that was it. So that's how these guys are going to fight the Earth powers. They're going to do it by getting out of their way, by being smarter, faster, and lighter, striking at them, and having the moral high ground and the morale high ground, and that's I think that's really cool. I always like being on the side that's outnumbered numerically but superior qualitatively. We built a number of frigates during the Revolutionary War. I've mentioned this before, and they were the best warships in the world. The British and we lost 4 of them. I think 3 of the 4 or the 5 that we lost were captured by the British, and one of them went from being USS something to HMS something, and they said that the British Royal Navy sailors said that this is the best vessel that they've ever seen, So we just got to make sure we don't make and we'll make some mistakes too. Um, yes, Roadrunner says the Brits loved the ships that they captured from. They were fantastic designs. We had a sort of an upgun frigate and a smaller frigate, and the only guy who we had who knew how to use them was John Paul Jones, and he never got his hands on one. It went to political appointees. One guy got trapped in a bay, and half of the American fleet was sunk there. Another guy surrendered once he got fired on. Another guy ran aground and surrendered. And John Paul Jones is sitting there in fishing boats, basically, and converted merchantmen and kicking their asses. If John Paul Jones had gotten his hand on an American frigate, it would have been an amazing event. And if he'd gotten his hand on the American Navy, the revolution would have been very different. And I mean to tell the story of the American Revolution with modifications. And the first modification I thought of was, it's going to take a while, but in the future, the guys responsible for the colony's military response are going to actively say that that we're not going to screw over our John Paul Jones. Airtechie says the 6 frigates were not built until the Jefferson administration. There's a book called 7 Frigates about those frigates, but and all of those things that I mentioned in terms of the French, the British liking the frigates better. You're right, that was a product of the War of 1812, but the Americans still had a number of the Continental Navy, which preceded the U.S. Navy, still had a number of really excellent ships that that didn't outclass the British ships in terms of throw weight of gunpowder, but sailed circles around them. However, with that said, you are correct. A lot of what I'm remembering is from the War of 1812 rather than the Revolution. And I hadn't even realized it, but no, that's absolutely true. Area 51 says, does John Paul Jones deserve an aircraft carrier? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And in 1799, the USS Enterprise was a schooner. Yeah, so that was well after the Revolutionary War. But Airtechie, you're right. Ultimately, you're right. Most of what I'm remembering is, in fact, from the War of 1812, which was kind of like the sequel to the Revolution, kind of like all right, well, kind of, we just lost, so F you, we're going to burn down your whatever. I'm going to combine the two. In fact, thank you for the clarification, because the more I think about it, the more you're right. I'm going to take the American Navy in the War of 1812 and fold them into the Revolution. Roadrunner says USS John Paul Jones, DDG-53, is an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer in the United States Navy. If it's DDG-53, it's an old one. It's probably a Flight 1. He deserves more than that. I've always liked cruisers, man. I think we haven't built a cruiser in forever, and our cruisers are being retired. Arleigh Burkes, on the other hand, are fabulous. They're just incredible ships, amazing ships. There's that. Robert Lang, you've talked extensively in the past about space combat, but will there ever be an opportunity for ground combat to make an appearance in the colonies? Will this be something you'd be willing to show in an episode, or just speak of it off camera? Airtechie is Robert Lang, ladies and gentlemen. There is absolutely going to be ground combat, and in fact, I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought that the Central Administrative District might commit what the colonists consider to be a war crime, because they're going to attack with robotic ground forces without any humans on the field. This is another thing that's going to be got to be finessed in terms of the backstory. So there's one thing that I cannot let out of the box, and that's AGI. If artificial general intelligence really is possible, then by the time of this show, the entire future will be unpredictable because of the effect of AGI. They did this in Dune. What was it called? Was it the Butlerian Jihad, where there was a war against the thinking machines, which is why you had the Guild Navigators, who are basically just mutated humans. What I decided to do was to say that every one of these powers and every warship has on board, in a box, literally in a box, in a safe, connected to nothing, is a box. It's like a rack that contains the AGI for the ship, that is disconnected from the ship. And its use is prohibited to the same degree that modern nuclear weapons are prohibited. We're going to have nuclear weapons all over the place in the space combat. It's just going to be chucking nukes like there's no tomorrow. But AGI is going to be the nuclear weapon of the 2270s. To deploy AGI will be the same thing as launching a nuclear weapon, which hasn't happened in a long time, 80 years. So that is a really good way to acknowledge its presence without having it screw everything. Can humans build FTL without AGI? Yes, absolutely. You don't need a self-aware computer to do the calculations. You don't need a computer to do the calculations that decides it doesn't feel good that day and doesn't want to do them. So yes, there's certainly AI, but AGI is banned, and it's banned because of something bad that happened in the past, and I'm going to sketch that in later. But it's banned, and what was the other thing that I have to kind of lock out? Robotic soldiers. That's going to be a much lower threshold. I think it's going to be considered a war crime to turn to use robotic soldiers against humans. But that'll be the kind of thing, like how many war crimes were there in the course of World War II? A bunch of they shoot 6 prisoners someplace. That's a war crime. The SS turns their guns on those guys in the Battle of the Bulge. That's a major war crime. So they're going to be more than willing to do that, but not let the AGI out of the box because of that. Air Turkey says, what about bioengineered troops? I hadn't really considered that. My off-the-cuff remark, my first thought would be, it's hard to imagine how you could bioengineer a human soldier that would be superior to a robotic soldier. But bioengineering could be something that's off the books. Again, what I was saying earlier is really important. We got to get the foundations done. I don't have the answers to this, but certainly there's got to be a history that happens between the present day and the time of the colonies, and during that period we can put a lot of things in there where we can say, for example, that in 2109 somebody introduced bioengineered soldiers, or eugenics went out of control. There was another massacre or genocide or something. All this stuff's got to sketched in, and I'm not suggesting that we don't have to get it, but we don't have to get it right now. And so in cases like this, we can do whatever we want to. So Marisha says, I feel the more sci-fi staples you remove, the less believable it becomes. Sci-fi staples like what? I didn't say there wouldn't be an all-robot army. I just said that there would be a moral revulsion against that kind of thing. The Americans thought that the British committed all kinds of war crimes during the Revolution, and in fact they did. And obviously one of them was this idea that they could just commandeer somebody's house and turn it into a barracks, which is why we have an amendment against that. I didn't say they're not going to be used. In fact, there's going to come a time when the front of the war comes to Niflheim, and so there is going to be a war there. and I have to decide how significant it is. I have to decide how um, strategically important Niflheim is. Uh, I don't suspect it's going to lie in any of the major theaters. It's certainly not going to have the significance of Philadelphia or New York or Charleston. It may be the place where you do like the Ticonderoga defeat. Uh, there was a naval battle that took place on a lake, and it was commanded by Benedict Arnold, and it was a major American victory, uh, but really kind of an out of the way. It was an out of the way thing. Yeah, it was really kind of interesting. I suspect that Niflheim will be something like Trenton um, in terms of its significance. Uh, Roadrunner says the Brits also had the bad habit of stopping American vessels on the oceans and pressing American sailors into British service. That is uh, what caused the War of 1812. Marusha says staples. Faster than light travel? We have faster than light travel. Gene editing? We have gene editing. AGI? It's in a box. Robots? We've got. Aliens? We got. So I don't exactly know what point you're making here. You're making it more science than fiction based on what we currently have rather than a version of what's possible, like Harry Potter magic portraits are now real tech. Again, we have faster than light travel. We have gene editing. We have AGI. We have robots. And we have aliens. They are put into boxes of reality containment fields that they've not been put at before, because we'll take aliens for example. In Star Trek, modern Trek, an alien is somebody who's got a different brow feature than other humanoids. That's just nuts. The Star Wars has thousands of races and all kinds of cute robots. I think it was only in Rogue One where you got a chance to actually see these robots be dangerous. Most of the time, they're comic relief. I think you're going to see a lot of robots in the colonies, and they're going to look like the robots in the colonies have to look purpose designed. They're not going to be humanoids with this. Marusha Dark says the droid army was dangerous. Well, Marusha, you and I have been doing this back and forth for a long time, and we've had disagreements about things, but I have to tell you, I think that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. The droid army in Star Wars was the most ineffective, ridiculous, comical, immersion-breaking, lazy, cheap, stupid thing I've ever seen. It absolutely destroyed the prequel trilogies. It was like sending out clockwork bunnies after these guys. Those robots. That the droid army was just a damn disgrace to writing in general. I have never seen a less effective, less intimidating, less threatening adversary than the droid armies in Star Wars. It was just plain ridiculous. And there's footage of Lucas and Spielberg talking about this. It's in the Mr. Plinkett's reviews, where he basically, we just kind of throw them away. It's like, and yet they slaughtered countless people. Well, I didn't see them slaughtering countless people. I just saw them getting cut down left and right, and they looked like goofy, and no one took them seriously. The droids in Star Wars are not serious creatures. The Terminators were serious, and those were scary. And otherwise, I can't think of where they've been done well. but they're not going to be humanoid. The robots in the colonies are going to be designed for the specific jobs that they're designed for, because of the same reason why the same reason that a fighter jet looks different than a commercial jetliner. You design the aircraft for the purpose. What about the rolling ones with the force fields that the Jedi ran from? Well, the Jedi ran from them. So, what kind of threat were they? The, the, and somebody pointed this out. I wish it was me, but they pointed out that the entire among the many faults of the prequel trilogies, they said what it was all about was a war between robots and clones, and nobody gives a damn about either one of them. They're both absolutely dispensable. They are, Marisha. If you want to say that the robot droid army in Star Wars was a formidable threat that the Jedi took seriously and constantly talked about and said, "What are we going to do about this? This is a real inhibitor on our plans and a deadly threat to the Republic." Then go ahead. But all the evidence we ever saw in the movies was that they are a joke. So, real combat robots are going to be really terrifying, and you'll see. And we're not going to do these big walkers either, where you just blast a leg off of it and off it goes. P7 says, "How would a robot miss?" Yes, it's a great question. How would a robot miss? And how do you take one down? And if you armor a robot and so on. I don't know what the effectiveness of EMP is. I don't know how well shielded the electronics can be. This is a question I bet you AirTechie has some answers to. But I would have to imagine that if the range was short enough, it would be almost impossible to shield an electronic warrior from some kind of EMP thing. I don't know. I know you can harden them, obviously. I just don't know whether you can harden them so that they're invulnerable. I don't know. I do know that Anduril has. They've been talking about trying to shoot down drones or throw nets at drones. That's ridiculous. But Anduril has an area denial weapon that, I don't know if they use microwaves or whatever. It just cooks everything, and they fall into the sky, and apparently is discreet enough to take a swarm of 200 and say 3 of those are ours and not take those out. And that's what you need. You need an electronic field, a barrier, not trying to kill every one of these things. You just got to fall from the sky. So, the history of warfare is always innovation and counter-innovation. Somebody comes up with a new idea on offense, and then finally somebody comes up with the defense to that offense, and so back it goes. A couple people mentioned the drones in Ukraine. I remember right after the war started. I mean, right after, 4 or 5 days after the war started or something. It seemed like maybe it was a week or two. The first time I ever saw a drone drop a bomb, it went through the sunroof on a car and killed everybody indoors. And I thought, wow. Now, I've seen more drone footage of guys getting killed in Ukraine than I'd be willing to bet I've seen more than anybody else in this room. But I think we are past peak. Well, let me rephrase that. We may not be past peak drone, but we are certainly past the age of having no defense there. Bill, you're the only one in your room. What does that mean? Have I stopped streaming or something? Anyway, So there's that. Guys, still got 3 to go. It's getting late. All right, let me get through these. Oh, Bob Neef says, no further questions, Your Honor. Just want to let you know that I'm using Sevier of the We the People 2.0 videos to teach my grandkids about socialism, capitalism. Thanks again for all your hard work. Thank you, Bob. They're great. Oh, yes, saw more drone strikes. Yes, I sure did. The Merger says we're back on this. We'll get to it real quick and then we'll move on. Didn't Palmer Luckey say on Joe Rogan something to the effect of the goal is to have robot soldiers removing humans from the kill box? It's probably the kill chain. That I think will be considered. That's probably a better refinement of what I was talking about. I think it will be considered a moral, civilizational outrage to deploy robots that did not have a human in the loop somewhere. Every drone attack that we've ever made from predator drones or Reapers has to be authorized by a human being. And so during the War of Independence, the Earth forces will use, I said, considered a war crime to use robotic soldiers. It's a much better, what I actually meant to say, if I didn't say it, was without having humans on the battlefield. But basically what they will do is they will unleash them from from the need for human verification of the targets. And that would be considered a war crime in the future and today as well. It's important that, what was his name? I think he was mentioned by name in The Patriot. A British cavalry commander in the Southern Theater used a lot of barbaric tactics against the colonists. Genuinely put like people in a church, set it on fire, that kind of thing. Tarrenton, and so there has to be that kind of thing, where the Earth authorities have to be fighting with a brutality that shows their contempt for the colonists and drives more and more people into the colonial camp. That's a mistake that decaying empires always make. We're just going to crush them with force, and we're not going to consider the outcome in terms of what it will do to morale or recruitment. And yeah, somebody who was it? Tom Gerlach says, yeah, the stupid American trope is not going to stick. I was looking at, I guess it was X or something, and it was, about, let me see if I can remember this. It was about exploring space or something. It was about space exploration or going to the moon, and somebody wrote, it'll be tough to explain all of this space travel to Americans who believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old and that women came from Adam's rib. And I wrote, it'll be especially tough to explain to all of the non-Americans who've never stepped on another world before. That was one of my favorite all-time replies. I just absolutely just loved it. The moon landing is the ultimate. It's the ultimate Uno reversal card. It's the ultimate mic drop. It really is. It's the ultimate mic drop. I just can't get enough of it. Eric Blake, tonight the case of the presidential paragons. Happy President's Day, Mr. Virtual President. Did you and the virtual First Lady take advantage and get a new mattress? No, our mattress is holding up pretty well. In honor of the day, what are your favorite fictional presidents from movies and TV? I don't really have a lot, Eric. The only one that comes to mind, the one in Independence Day was, it was all right. That speech was all right. I study, inspirational speeches. Not a lot of them. Everybody tries to write one. There's very, very few that are any good. The opening speech in Patton is fantastic. Aragorn's speech is second in literature. Henry V's speech barely ekes it out. The only thing I can remember about fictional presidents is I seem to like Harrison Ford in Air Force One because he seemed like he was taking action, but I don't really have a favorite fictional president. The president of the colonies is going to be a historian named Sam Grafe, and his vice president is going to be a guy named Michael Ellison, who's a lawyer, or a goddamn lawyer, as he's referred to universally. And Sam Grafe, the president, will have written a couple of historical books. One of them is called How to Beat Someone Better Than You, the Greek phalanx through to the Thatch Weave, or something like that. And I forget what the other one was called. It's in my Colonies Bible. Yeah, that's just going to be an in joke. Yes, I think he is a PhD, actually. Yeah, the in joke is going to be that the vice president is just, you're the goddamn lawyer. Well, I'm not a goddamn, you're the goddamn lawyer. That's just how they're constantly going to refer to him. Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact was a good POTUS. Yeah, he was. Just never came to mind to me. So, two to go. Jaser McFarland. Good evening, Bill and friends. As a father of 3 little girls and 1 son, that scene where Jack's response to Claire's actions really resonated with me. Good, because I'm a little worried about that, and I think it's great. My wife and I gave our best stab at writing Claire's night out at a nightclub while enjoying a family vacation, so forgive the poor edits, but I hope you enjoy it, and any criticisms would be greatly appreciated. I sent it to info@billwhittle.com email address. I should get that tomorrow. Shelley was off today because it's President's Day. If there's any value to our story, feel free to post it to the member forum, or I can. I'm curious after your work this week if there's any other ideas or concepts, plot to a scene you'd like us as members to elaborate on to give you ideas beyond Grok and what ChatGPT can do. Best wishes. Hope you're the best. Thanks. Thank you very much for that. I'll look forward to seeing it. I've got that scene already written. And nevertheless, I'm very, very curious to see what you've written and see if there's anything in there I can incorporate. I've got that scene blocked out to pretty much to the letter. But I am looking forward to seeing it, and certainly I'm sure there's a lot of insights in there, and I'm very much looking forward to getting your take on what Jake's action. Hey, look at that! There's another super chat from Michael Harvey for $50. Just says thank you, Michael. These kind of things have a power way beyond the dollar value. It's just incredibly encouraging to me, and very satisfying, and I deeply appreciate it, as we all do. So thank you very much for that, very much. Let's see. Last one, Eric Oshiro. Aloha, Bill. Just a shamelessly bad dad joke. Photo of Nell Armstrong Museum for the Colonies propaganda. Yeah, I'm not going to air that. Actually, I might as well. It's not terribly offensive. It's pretty funny, actually. Which reminds me so much of the what is it called? Come on. It's eluded me. There's a closed nuclear power plant on I-5 between Los Angeles and San Diego. It's right by Camp Pendleton, and it's called I can't remember. But it looks like this from a distance. drop it in here. Hang on a second. Come on, what is that place called? I drove past San Onofre. Thank you, Trinity. Yeah, San Onofre is very suggestive. Here's the Neil Armstrong Memorial. Takes a moment for the full impact to sink in. Doesn't have a nuclear containment. It's actually got a bonnet. But yeah. Roadrunner is talking to Aussie Drone Guy here, and he says, I knew I liked you, mate. I met a lot of Aussies when I was stationed in Germany, and they taught me how to party, but I was a poor student. I kept passing out. Dude, I had the exact same experience. I was in Brisbane for 4 months back in 1998, and I loved the guys. I just loved them. And yeah, it was great. Many times told the story back in the day of it was my Uncle Ted, who's a real inspiration to me. He was a aeronautical engineer and a specialist in gas turbine engines, otherwise known as jet engines. And it was his 80th anniversary, and we went to Pattaya, Thailand, and the crew was consisted of one American, that'd be me, a Canadian, 2 Brits, including a former soldier, and 2 or 3 Aussies. So the entire Anglosphere was represented, with the exception of New Zealand, who we wouldn't have let in anyway. And so we all went out on the town and had a great time. And I swore to myself, before I went, that I was not going to eat any exotic foods because I just find that stuff gross. But the next thing I know, the ex-British Marine comes up to all of us with a plastic bag filled with fried grasshoppers, and everybody was trying one, and I decided there is no way that I'm going to let Team America down on this one. It's just not going to happen. If the freaking Canadian's going to do it, then all right, I'm on board. So I did. And it didn't taste bad at all, but the chitin, which is the shell, if you crunch that, it will get between your teeth like sand, and you cannot get it out. I mean, for days. I rinse my mouth, brush my teeth. It's just really fine, and it gets in there, and it's like, good Lord. I have an Uncle Jack, too, by the way. For those of you having a discussion about whose uncles are popular and so on. Yeah, it was not fun, but I did it. And the other thing we did there on Walking Street in Pattaya is they had a bar. It was a former Marines, beg your pardon, entirely my fault. I usually don't make that mistake. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Roadrunner. They had it was almost like a trailer, like a truck trailer, like a semi trailer with one side glass. So it was long and narrow, and it was frozen. It was an ice bar. They kept everything in there sub-zero. The actual bar was a giant block of ice, and you would go in there, and they had all these heavy coats, and you'd go in there for 20 minutes, and they'd serve you like ice cold vodka, and so we were all, it's Thailand, so we're all dressed in, like real thin cotton shirts and stuff, and so we go in there, the 6 or 7 of us, and we got all these coats lined up on the pegs to go in there, and I don't remember who it was. It wasn't me, but the first guy went in there, and instead of putting on the jacket, he just took his shirt off. So we all took our shirt off, and we were standing in this room with, got to be 28 degrees or something in there. and we're drinking vodka shots, and we're doing that kind of, again, it's like, what am I going to be the only guy who doesn't go in there and do that? I like to think that I'm resistant to social proof, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let my country down in front of Australians, Canadians, and Brits. Not going to happen. One thing that the Australians and the Americans have in common, and I think this is one of the things that unites our country, because I think Americans and Australians are the most similar people in the world, bar none. I think they're the most similar cultures in the world that are actually distinct cultures. And I think a lot of that has to do that both the Australians and the Americans have had the satisfaction of shooting at guys in red coats. Taking pot shots at pommy bastards has been an essential part of both these cultures. And I'm half pommy bastard myself. I mean, 50% half. But yeah, it's just fun watching them run away when their wigs fall off and all the powder and stuff. Which immediately makes me start singing the Battle of the Battle of New Orleans in my head. Yeah, I mean, the Anglosphere is the Anglosphere, and I love all of them. I love Canadians. The only English-speaking country that I really don't have any respect for, honestly, is New Zealand. I know the Anzacs were huge in World War I and in World War II, but they just turned into such P-words. And I remember them during the Cold War. I remember New Zealand says, "We will not allow any American ships into our port that are carrying nuclear weapons." And I thought, okay, well, you defend yourself against China then. But the Aussies, man, they're the best. Anya, Aussies, and good on you. And we're that wasn't the one I was thinking of, but that'll do. Pufters is fine. They're just sanctimonious. Virtue signalers. Airteki says that the ruling class normal people are fine. I'm sure that's true. It's true pretty much everywhere else. Did this really happen? Got him, Coach. He says, breaking news, Billie Eilish calls ICE on immigrants who camped on her property in California today. It can't be true. Really? Oh, that's golden. I will say this, however, and this will be the last thing of the night. I went down there and I spent 4 months there, and my Uncle Ted was traveling a lot more than he originally thought, so I was stuck at the house a lot and watching a fair amount of TV. So I watched a lot of Australian rules football and a fair amount of rugby. And rugby fans say that American football is nothing but, 6 seconds of action followed by, 40 seconds of huddling and so on. And there's some truth to that. But I watched enough rugby to realize that rugby is just a 60-minute fumble recovery. But I did watch New Zealand All Blacks play the Australian national team in New Zealand. And that's where I first saw the haka. And when I saw the haka, I lost my mind. I have seen, I think, almost every haka video on YouTube. I'm a connoisseur of them. And when I saw that, I just couldn't believe how cool it was. I just loved it. I loved it. Any movie updates, Bill? Tevin, we've been working on updates to the colonies the whole time, so the only one that would really do it for me would be the movies that I'm working on. But this whole show's been that, so if you got here late, you can check it again. I did a lot of work on these Pogaroo creatures, which I need, and all that other stuff. First time chat from Pewitz that says, Jacinta Ardern. Not entirely sure what that means, but Oh, that's great. An immigrant tried to camp on our lawn. I think they should all camp on our lawn. We should be giving them directions. We should be busing her to the place so that they can camp on her lawn. Tucky says, my cousin played for the Aussie national rugby team. He got kicked out of New Zealand for unnecessary roughness. I will say this, it's a rough sport, and I think I used to watch rugby. I used to play rugby when I was in Bermuda, but I watched, serious rugby games in Bermuda. Oh, Jacinta is the New Zealand Prime Minister. And rugby, you can definitely get hurt in rugby. And look, I played enough rugby to know that you come out of a rugby game just scuffed up, right? You just eat a lot of grass, and you got skinned this or cut on this or that ever. And I heard rugby players and rugby fans saying, "Oh, this is so much tougher than American football because in American football you're wearing all the pads and armor and all that other stuff," which is true. But never in rugby did I see 200-300-pound guys running into each other at top speed, head on. The tackles in American football are, when you see these head-on collisions with guys that weigh 250 pounds and they do they can run 100 meters in 6 seconds. It's like you kill people without that kind of thing. I've seen rugby players play American football, and they were shocked at the impact forces. So, a rugby tackle is a side tackle or a back tackle, but it's not a head-on collision the way it is with American football. It's like watching a truck go into a wall. I've only worn football pads once in my life. I had a friend who had them. Had an extra set. We were playing a lot of football. I played a lot of flag football, touch football when I was growing up. A lot, like 10 years. And the only time I ever wore pads was against like 2 or 3 other guys that had pads. And we weren't even playing football. I remember so clearly walking out that guy's front yard and feeling that sense of invulnerability. We would just stand back and just run into each other just as hard as we could. It was epic, absolutely epic. It was like, this is great, man. I loved it, loved it. Well, we are at another. Now we're not at a 4-hour tour, but at a 3-hour tour. So there we go. Tom Gerlach says football, and I refuse to qualify it as American football. I agree. Is the best sport ever devised for every reason to have a sport. Could not agree more. I absolutely 100% agree. Tevin Stewart says, Bill, big fan. You're an amazing speaker. Just got deleted. It's probably too nice. Anyway, it looks like we've got a bromance going on here, and comrades in arms and all the rest of it. I'm happy to be able to be a place where fine, upstanding people like yourselves can get together and meet and so on. In any event, it is time for me to go. That's interesting. Pro baseball player dominates at cricket. Yeah, I get if you can hit a baseball, you should be able to hit a cricket ball. I have to say this too. I played a little bit of cricket. Not a fan. But I really do like the cricket bat. Swinging a cricket bat is like a combination of swinging. I played baseball before I ever played cricket, but swinging that flat-fronted cricket bat is like a combination of swinging a baseball bat and a golf club. When you hit that cricket ball right on the flat part, it doesn't feel quite as good as a really solid connection on a baseball bat, but it's fun. I just remember, I remember catching cricket balls. Did I say I played baseball first? I didn't. I played cricket first in Bermuda. And then when I came to America, I was Little League Baseball for 2 years. And my first year I was in right field, and we were 0-10. The second year I played first base, and we were 10-0. And in the World Series game, I was on first base, and somebody smacked a line drive, a Little League line drive, just saying, to right field, I'm a right-handed guy playing first base, which is not the way it's supposed to go. It's supposed to have your glove on the diamond side of the thing, but I wasn't. And somebody smacked a line drive to right field, and I didn't even think about it. I just reached out and grabbed it with my right hand and caught it. And that was the third out. So we go back to the dugout, and everybody's screaming and yelling up and down. And what's going on? And they were so amazed that I just caught this ball on the fly without a glove, and didn't think twice of it. Catch a cricket ball by like decelerating it. You don't just catch it. You kind of pull it down. For those who may find yourself later this evening in need of figuring out how to catch a cricket ball. Got him coach says, Bill, you want to talk about fun? Did you ever hit golf balls with an aluminum baseball bat? No, but that sounds like a lot of fun. Wow, I bet they go like bullets off of that. Tink. Not a fan of aluminum bats generally. Roadrunner says, Bill, do you still identify as an 8-year-old so that you can play Little League Baseball? No, I still identify as an 8-year-old so that I can go become the MVP of Little League Baseball. I've already played Little League Baseball. I just want to be the MVP and get the big trophy I've deserved about it. Oh, I did want to talk about Robert Duvall just real quick. I met him a couple times. A complete gentleman, a great actor, great American, iconic. I think he uttered one of the most, truly ironic lines in film history. Not like, modern misinterpretation of ironic, but a line that just would go on to prove tremendous irony. And it's in one of my favorite sequences in movies of all time. It's one of the best sequences ever committed to film. During the helicopter attack in Apocalypse Now, when they're in there kicking ass, there's a scene where there's a 50 cal on a Jeep or a cart, on some kind of vehicle, and it's going across this causeway, and it's already shot down one of the helicopters, and Duvall says, all right, I'll take this myself. So he rolls his chopper and blows this thing up with rockets. Just blows it right off the rails and kills everybody. And as he comes out of his run, he looks over his shoulder and he says, don't these people ever give up? And turns out they don't. But that's a great line. And Arlie Ermy is in Apocalypse Now. He's a Loach pilot. Nice shot, Red 6. I owe you a case of beer for that one, or whatever his call sign was. It's an amazing sequence. Amazing sequence. They're playing the music and Lance is there, and it's like, you're playing music, and he's like, yeah, he's shouting over the rotor blades, and he's like, yeah, it's Wagner. My boys love it. Scares the hell out of the slopes. Yeah, and Charlie, don't surf. You're either going to surf or you're going to fight. And that bubble of invincibility around him, around Kilgore is, he's just, everybody's taking cover and there's just bullets whizzing everywhere, and he's just standing up, walking around, hand on his hips. He knows he's not going to get hit. See that, Lance? See the way it breaks both ways. See, you can break right or you can break left. That's epic, dude. And he's walking out to his chopper. That helicopter attack scene is absolutely one of the best action sequences ever committed to film. The only problem I have with it, and it is a small one and an understandable one, and that is that the rockets they used were just like, they were like Roman candles. They would just fall off. The rockets just didn't look right. But everything else was just freaking amazing, and he's walking out to his Huey gunship, and they've got a 9th Cavalry, with the bugler, and he's calling the Is that the charge? Anyway, he got the cross sabers on the nose, and he takes off his cowboy hat and hands it to a guy, puts on his helmet, gets off the chopper at the end of the battle. First thing he does, takes his helmet off, puts his cowboy hat on, and it's great. And after the battle, there's like this wounded Viet Cong on the ground, and he says, get that brave man a water, and he, picks him up, and he can drink from my canteen anytime. This guy's got guts. And then somebody calls him, and then he immediately just like drops the guy, just turns to him. It's like, I don't know, he's great. He's great. And it was fantastic. Got him, coach says, when's the last time Bill Woodall has been skiing? That would have been a while. I used to go skiing twice a week when I lived out here. When I first got out here, I used to go twice a week. I'd go Wednesday nights and Saturday nights. We used to night ski at Big Bear at Snow Summit. And a lot fewer crowds, a lot colder. I was at Big Bear last weekend. Was adventurous. I took my nephew Ashton up there the day after it snowed for 4 days. It's the best snow I've ever seen. And I loved Big Bear, and I loved skiing up there. But it's been a long time. Last time that I can remember skiing was probably 20 years ago with a couple of my little cousins, and they were like 6 or 7, and they were going downhill like rockets, and they didn't even have poles because they were so small. And I went over a mogul, which I'd done many times in the past, but I did it when I was probably late 40s, and I just went doink like that and came back up, and I realized that there was like a tendon that ran from the tip of my toes to the back of my neck, and that tendon said to me, don't you ever do that to me again. I don't have any cartilage anymore. I don't have any tendons anymore. None of that. Anyway, we're about done here. Eric Lake says, speaking of Kilgore, ever surfed, Bill? I bodied surfed since I was 4 or 5. I love body surfing. I've done some boogie boarding, but I have never once stood up on a surfboard, not once in my life. But I love body surfing. I love it so much. I love that sensation when you really kick hard. And I've been on body surf on some fairly big waves here in the Pacific, because you don't get really big waves on the East Coast. But I've been on some decent sized ones in the Pacific, and that sensation, if you've ever done it, that sensation when you're just you see it's coming and you get the timing right, you start just paddling like crazy, and that moment when you know that you got it, that you're just over the lip of it, and you can feel yourself going downhill and you start to accelerate, absolutely epic. Got him, Coach Bill. We got to talk about Gavin Newsom signing a bill allowing anyone in Los Angeles to sell hot food from their own house and driveways and backyards. Allowing them? Why would he be doing that? Where's the communism in that? There's got to be an angle. All right, I got to go. Anyway, thanks very much for being with us tonight, and thanks for all the feedback as always, and the support and all the rest of it. It's been great as usual. I will. I had to bail on Stress Free Lounge last Thursday, but we'll be back this Thursday. So until then, thanks very much to the members, especially at BillWoodall.com, who keep things going here, and all the rest of you who've been so helpful with everything. We're very, very grateful for the support as always. And we will see you on Thursday night for your very own Stratosphere Lounge. Thanks. We'll see you.